Hello, everybody, and welcome to Andrelczyk Amusement Academy, number 4. Today we are looking at inverted coasters. So, we're gonna jump on in here. I'm trying some new music this time. We're gonna just pull from the game because I don't want it to keep getting muted on YouTube. So, no more Fantasialand music today, sadly, but here we are. If this is your first time joining this stream, then thank you for being here. Andrelczyk Amusement Academy is just my little show here where I am doing just informational sessions on how to build realistic coasters in RCT2, taking your questions, and hopefully you'll learn something out of it. We'll talk coaster history and all that kind of stuff too. I am a real-life theme park designer, so I can at least add a little bit of credence to what I'm telling you guys. And so I just want to kind of pass on some of that information. So anyway, thanks for being here. So what are we going to look at today? So the challenge with RCT is that there's a pretty limited amount of stuff you can do as far as custom trains, custom track, and things like that. We've had a number of those in the last couple of streams with the hypercoasters and the wooden coasters. We've got so many options for wooden coaster trains, but inverted coaster, not so much. We're actually not using any custom ones here for the first time. So we're going to make do, but we can't do quite as many things as I'd like to do. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a couple of different things. We've got, 9 here? 9 different ones, and some of these are going to go quick. So this might be a faster stream than usual, which means I can do some other stuff at the end, perhaps. But anyway, what we've got so far is we'll look at B&M, kind of their early stuff, and then also their more modern things, so like one of the larger B&Ms, perhaps. Then we're going to jump over to Vekoma and spend a little while there. So we're going to look at the SLC standard, we're going to look at a custom SLC, we're going to look at the Invertigo, the Giant Inverted Boomerang. Then we'll go to the Intamin Impulse Coaster. We are going to look at the kind of modern Vekoma, which is not something I've done so far, so that could be an interesting time. And then we're going to look at Giovanola here, even though that's pretty similar to B&M. So the other ones that I kind of like to do, but don't really have the option or options to do it well, I suppose, is I'd really like to look at Intamin. Look at the Intamin suspended catapult coaster like Volcano at King's Dominion, or either of their inverted coasters, or their new family invert that they opened a year or two ago at De Jure Summerland. But there really isn't a good track style or train style to do that, so we could always do it with B&M track, which we might do a little bit later. Did we lose the internet already? Fuck. Okay, so you guys should have it. Once you hear, just send me a note once you, or just copy in the chat once you get back. We're gonna reconnect here in just a minute. We will be back. All right. We should have it back now, hopefully. Let me know when you guys get that. Annoyingly, I think I've lost connection within the first 10 minutes of every single stream so far, and then it usually holds pretty steady after that. So I don't know what it is, but I keep losing connection, and then it just will come back, but it goes out for, say, 30 seconds. Just enough to be annoying, which is frustrating. But anyway, I think I should have everybody back. It shows that I'm streaming again, so hopefully you're still there. If you need to refresh, go ahead and do that. But let's see, let's just take a look. All good, everybody, hopefully. And We'll go ahead and queue up this. Cool. All right. So let's start it out. And if it does go down again, by the way, just hang tight. I mean, I'm not going anywhere. I just got to get it reset. So we'll hopefully figure that out here for a future time. All right. So actually, before we get going on our inverted coasters, let's start into our coaster history just a little bit. So let's jump over to the coaster database, handy dandy coaster database, and look at what was the world's first inverted coaster, or say modern inverted coaster, since there are always exceptions. Is this Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great Adventure, or Great America? Sorry, I have the wrong one up. Not Six Flags Great Adventure, Six Flags Great America. Subtract several coaster points for me. Here we are, Six Flags Great America. Yeah, hey Jimmy. Yeah, it's inverts today. So, Batman the Ride, Six Flags Great America. The park had to fill a really tight and narrow plot of land that formerly had housed a Schwarzkopf launched looping coaster. So very long, very narrow. So what they came up with was a very long, very narrow coaster that they ended up theming to Batman. So Batman the Ride. Very tight, compact layout. Nice diving drop. Loop, 0G roll, another loop, 2 corkscrews. Well, flat spins. Not actually corkscrews, but flat spins. It fit in, and it was incredibly popular. It was the first suspended coaster with a fixed train, so that was the big difference. And you'll hear the word suspended and the word inverted kind of thrown around because different manufacturers use different texts or kind of call things different things. So like Vekoma, they call theirs a suspended looping coaster, an SLC, but it's not suspended, it's inverted. So we're going to treat those terms as we'll call them what the manufacturer calls them, but in reality, suspended means it hangs below the track and it swings, and inverted means it hangs below the track and it's fixed, so allowing inversions and things like that. So that's what we're going to do today. So Batman was the first one, pretty compact, and then after that we had a number of other ones that were on the compact side. Batman ended up being cloned a whole bunch of times. There are 32 total inverted coasters now. And then we had ones like Flight Deck, which was next, kind of the first custom layout, although I suppose the first Batman would have been custom too. So let's, without further ado, let's go ahead and get in and build something here. So there's been so many Batman the Ride coasters in the game, so I'm not going to do that. You can find so many varieties of that elsewhere. So we're going to do something like Top Gun at California's Great America. Instead, so let's go with this. So we're going to use a 7-car train to start. Usually you're going to see 7 or 8 on B&M inverted coaster. Almost always it's going to be 8, but you can see 7. You can also see 9. It happens once on Alpengeist at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, but that's it. After that, you're not going to see it anymore. I did. It's not Top Gun anymore, it's Flight Deck, but Flight Deck is sad and depressing, so we're going to use something else. Okay, so early B&Ms had a pre-drop. So after the lift hill, we're going to come up, we're going to stop, and then we're going to put a flat piece. Now you can either put a flat piece and then drop if you want that to be extended a little bit. I find that most inverted coasters, it feels a little shorter than that, so we're not going to put that one. We're just going to do our little dip there, and then we're going to go into it. So you can use the steep bit here. I really try and avoid this piece on most all of my coasters that I build, but for the first drop, I kind of think it's more acceptable there. So we're going to come around. We'll start something sort of like the Batman's first drop. So you're going to generally see it start steep and then kind of slowly curve outwards, which is why I do the steep then followed by the curve. You kind of see them both ways. I don't generally recommend going with the diving drop and then the steep drop. I feel like that just looks a little strange. So we will continue like this. All right, we're going to flatten that out and up this way. We can do a little bit of banking smoothing there if we want to later. for these first ones, I'm not really using a whole lot of large inversions or things like that, so we're not going to use the large half loops. So we'll start with smaller ones here. We'll come up and around, and then we'll cross that lift till. You're not going to see a whole lot of airtime hills on these kind of coasters. Not to say that it can't be done. Dueling Dragons is a great example of it, but you're also not really going to see a whole lot of just meandering bits. Really, you're going from inversion to inversion or corner to corner. That's almost the entirety of what these rides are. So that's kind of a key thing to remember as you look at what these coasters are going to do. So here we have a nice pacing through that loop right there, and then we'll curve it around. Here you go. You're still rocking that first subscriber badge too, so well done there. All right. You can do Helix elements, and the nice thing about RCT is that we have this large Helix option, the Helix up and down in a quarter, which the suspended coaster also has. It's great and entirely useful. I would recommend it. So it's definitely something to have. All right, so let's trying to feel like a way to curve it back in the other direction, which would generally kind of like to do a little Helix on, but what we're going to actually do is this, and see about where we don't have clearance checks on. Annoyingly, one of the things with inverted coasters in this game is that they require a 3-height clearance instead, which means that we end up with a lot of things that we can't do. There's not one of them, though. There we go. So we're going to do a tight little helix there. Like I said, if you do a helix, you're going to see it generally sort of angled and kind of doing stuff like that. So we'll go in that direction, and then we'll run a 0G roll through here. And that's a pretty good distinction. We're talking 0G roll, not an inline twist. So a 0G roll is basically a hill that has the hill rotated 360 degrees. So you want to take it relatively fast. You don't want to take it slow. It's designed to create 0 Gs for the riders. So you want to make sure that it's quick, and it kind of starts by heading up into it and ends by coming down off of it. Now, more modern B&M coasters, such as Banshee at Kings Island, does have an inline twist, but all of the early B&Ms and pretty much all the other ones are going to have a 0G roll. So just make sure you have the distinction of what the difference is between those couple. These early ones were also pretty short, so we're not going to make this terribly long. We're actually going to get ready to wrap this thing up here. Not do a whole heck of a lot with it. See if we can squeeze a corkscrew under here. I'm going to call them corkscrews. Just be aware they are not corkscrews. They are flat spins. The difference is just how it's rotated. So a corkscrew, you're already banked going in and you're banked coming out. The flat spins are not. The flat spins go from 0 to banking and then back again. So that's the key difference. I don't want to do that because we can't get. There we go. And then we'll go through here. We will put in a kind of back our way out. And we'll do another set of block brakes and then one more. Since we're only going to run 2 trains on this, we really need about, say, 10 pieces worth of brakes, which is still going to seem like a lot, but it's not crazy. So we can now try and end this guy. So we'll end it like that, which is not my favorite way to end it, and it's something that I'd probably come in there and change a little bit later. The reason that I don't quite like it is that we're kind of coming through here, coming around this helix, then we're going to go through this corkscrew, and then we're going to curve again back. So generally I like to curve kind of into and then back towards once we open, or once you go through the inversion. So I could easily see going around and changing it that way, but you can kind of go either way. So let's take a look. We got our big diving drop there, our loop, which we've raised up a little bit to make sure that the pacing stays right. Then we do a little bit of meandering here across the lift hill. We have our tight little helix here, up through this 0G roll. And then smooth it out, stretch it out a little bit. These are pretty stretched elements here, especially with this helix that's awfully tight. It's normal to have 3 helixes. Yeah, I think it's reasonable to say. It really just depends how you consider a helix. I mean, I consider this one kind of as coming in straight, and then we're going to do the helix and then come out at 90 degrees to the start of it. You look at Top Gun at California, for example, that's got one, and then there's another one at the end, and a couple other curves in there, but it doesn't really have 3. But it's not to say that it couldn't. Fast corkscrew. Let's take a look. Let's see what our speed actually is through there, because there is sort of a good speed that you want it to be, and it does look a little bit fast. You're right. Alright, so we're hitting 30, 32 or so through the top. That's probably, we're on B&M, Mr. Rob. We're doing early B&Ms, and then we'll jump into kind of newer generation B&Ms. So 32 miles an hour or so through the top of that. I don't know what that converts to in non-freedom units, but we're 40-something on the way, through the beginning. So that's a little fast, not too fast, but it's on the faster end. You don't want it to totally whip through. You kind of want to see it slow down a little bit. Like if it visually doesn't look like it's slowing down, then you probably want to revise it a little bit. I wouldn't advise on trim brakes, but if that's all you can do, then, you know, so be it. But let's meet this guy. Alright, we'll call it a day. And actually what I want to do, if you stick around to the end of the stream, we're going to jump back to my map from the last week, the wooden coaster map. I actually improved a number of those layouts because when I'm doing this, I'm building it just straight on the spot. I haven't actually practiced any of these ahead of time, so you're never going to get a great layout on your first run unless you just have a magical spark of inspiration. So I recommend trying and adjusting and continuing to work on a lot of that. So it's something that I've been doing kind of through the week. So I improved a bunch of the old wooden coasters, and I'll probably do the same with these, especially because inverted coasters are tough. They're really tough. So yeah, we'll fix some of these up too. I mean, this is okay. I think we can fix it up a little bit. And yeah, it's all right. I mean, it really is. You can't. There is no medium loop, and on these original ones, there weren't huge, so I'm not looking for the big loop. I really want to. I would love to have something a little bit larger, but you know, it's kind of a mix. And then depending on how much speed you got, you have to have these long kind of runways in and out, and I feel like that looks a little bit weird. But yeah, I mean, medium loop would be best loop, I would think. All right, so let's jump back to RCDB. Yeah, I forgot we still have our music going down here. We'll keep it. It's fine. Anyway. Alright. So, they got bigger after the early ones. So, kind of our first real big one was Raptor. Raptor introduced the Cobra roll to the world. This was the first Cobra roll on a B&M. There it is in the background there. On a B&M invert, I should say. And this one was since cloned later in Japan. And then we had a whole string of Batmans. There was just through the beginning of the 90s and through the rest of the 90s, there was a lot of those, including ones that weren't Batman themed. So SeaWorld San Antonio's got one. We've got Gambit at Thrill Valley and a number of these other ones. Then we get into the big ones in the mid-90s. So Montu, Alpengeist, Pyrenees, some of these real large ones especially. Yeah, the first Cobra roll I would think is probably on the Vekoma Boomerang, would be my guess. We had the pretzel knot on the Misho thing at Fuji-Q, but that was not. That's a good question. I think it is. I think you're right. It will be the on the Boomerang. So Cocoon here at Mirabilandia in Italy is one of my favorite looking ones. It's not one that I've gotten to ride, but it's just impressively large. So maybe we'll do something like this for our big one. Let's go back and have a look. Pyrenees is my favorite invert that I've ridden. It's just huge and incredibly powerful. Great ride. Would recommend. But let's try to do something between Pyrenees and Cocoon. And yeah, Mav, I know you enjoyed that one for sure. It's good coaster. Get ourselves in the mood for Cocoon a little bit. We'll make this blue. So pre-lift, you can do pre-lift a little bit, and yeah, we're gonna. It's a good question, Sheep. Is kind of where you draw the line, because it's been kind of a steady development, and there's really not a lot that you can say. You can kind of draw the line and say this is like the new generation. Probably, I would say Osiris is where it kind of really started with the newer level. So actually, that may be a better one to try. Is something like that. So why don't we do that? We'll start with a little bit lower. So Osiris forewent the pre-drop, and it was the first of the inverts to not have one. We just went straight off into our nice diving drop. All right, let's make sure we're doing okay with height. We get. All right, so that still gives us a big inversion plus a couple of pieces if we go at this level. You're not going to get a ton of real massive inverts. We can probably stick maybe one more on there just to get the height. Well, Vekoma really has the big difference between the first and to where they are now, but B&M is just kind of a steady development over time, and you see a lot more. You see a lot more kind of larger stuff from them as far as just kind of flowing inversions go and things like that. So let's we're off here. The challenge with all of these, if you go for stats, if you're playing for stats like ratings and everything, the inverted coaster is going to suck. I mean, it's just really not going to be great, considering that the ride is super intense in the game, and it's not really where we want where you want to go as far as making a ride that's kind of easy to deal with. So not super recommended. And trying to kind of see what the best way to do some of this would be. We're going to do with a dive loop. Get our test train going. Make sure we get 8 cars on this one. Hey Hydro, good to see you here. Thanks for coming by. Kind of do this little speed hill thing going on here. So a little slow on the dive loop, but not too bad. We'll go with this sort of speed hill here. go right into a loop, and then that's 3 or 2 lower. That should be all right. Bring this down actually, and let's see how well it takes this loop. See what we want to go, whether we go for a bigger or a smaller. And actually, looking at this here, so that's not too bad. Ooh, not even there. I just did with the early B&M with the with this guy, so we'll count him as early, and then we're gonna count this one as the more modern. One more and crossover. How do you come up with the layout? So it's for inverted coasters, it's really the flow between the various inversions. So you want to make sure that what you're doing has a nice kind of push between the different elements. See how this one's not going too well as far as the overall height goes, because you want to make sure you have enough speed through the inversions, and clearly the 16 height here is going to be a little bit too slow. So we're gonna try and use a little bit of terrain here. We're going to kind of fabricate our own terrain, which I am fully in favor of. If you ever need to get pacing right, just fix your terrain. We'll smooth that out a little bit, and then go through this loop. Let's see what we look like here. We'll have this sort of high-speed hill here, dive down, and then that's looking much better, because you get a little bit of hang time on the top, a little bit of pause, but not huge. And now we're going to bring this down 1 or 2 more. Start with 1. Go over. The nice thing with a lot of big birds have the bottom of the hill and inversions and trenches anyway. It's true, and a lot of that's just from a theming standpoint, more than anything. But it is something that a lot of the inverts have. So let's watch this guy come down. Makes that pretty well. We're going to call that a little too slow, so we are going to bring this down 1 more. And the thing is, trenches you can theme really well. I mean, these rides are hard to theme, and you really want to add those near-miss elements, because especially with inverted coasters, you can't see very well when you're riding one of these. Unless you're in the front row, you're kind of all hidden by the rest of the train coming around. So would recommend on some of these is doing things that you're gonna see no matter where you are on the train. Okay, see how this goes. There we got a nice loop. See how we're doing through here. 36, that's the right speed for a 0G roll. Okay. Now we're feeling pretty good on that one. We could go up and do a mid-course brake run in here somewhere. Now, most of the big B&M inverts, at least kind of the mid-90s into the early 2000s, if they were big enough, they had a mid-course brake run. But then you look at something like Osiris, for example, that doesn't have one, and I don't think it needs one. So it's just a matter of trying to figure out what you want to do as far as capacity goes, and things like that. And to see if this is even worth our stretching this around to get through. I don't generally like stretching the large corners to get it through. Few banks to unbank before going up or down. So a lot of times I like to keep it a little more smooth. So like for here, I like to fully unbank it before I start to go up. You could also stretch it a little bit if you wanted to. For example, here, take this one for example, we come up bank, go through the wide curve here, and then go back down. I'm actually going to go back, take out an extra one of these, and then start to bank it now, and then make it flat. So we're going to ease into that banking. I think it smooths it out a little bit, makes it look a little bit better on the whole. And then I'm usually going to put a straight piece in between the valleys here. We're also going to put a flatter piece, like the shallow piece, before we go to steep, just because it smooths out this hill, it stretches it a little bit. So it's, here, I'll do the wooden coaster example just because I feel like it's the easiest looking one. So you can do kind of this as a hill, and it's very kind of arcade looking as far as the hill goes. It's very kind of straight and a little bit aggressive. So if we're going for more realism, where we want to stretch things a little bit, make them look a little bit nicer, we're going to come in here and then we're going to go like this. And then up at the top, depending on how fast it's going, we can either put a flat piece up on top to make it really stretched, or just kind of go down. And then we can do something like this. So it takes up more space, absolutely. We're going kind of 1.5 a hill here, but in the end, I think it looks way better. And then we'll put a straight piece on the bottom. And we'll do something like that. So you can kind of see in the end, this one is way longer, but it also looks way better, and it kind of feels like it emulates the real life shaping of the hills a little bit better than something like this, which feels kind of abrupt and aggressive. It also, I don't know if it actually has any effect on the G's in the game or on the ratings, but that's not something I really care about. But yeah, so we're trying to get smooth in pretty much all of these instances. Is the smoothness of the layout is really what kind of matters to us at this point. Don't be afraid to do long straight sections. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm trying to get this to go up through the loop it through the dive loop, but I don't think it's gonna work, and I don't want to force it because we're making a really huge helix when we go that way. So I'm not thinking that, or I don't think that's gonna cooperate. Yeah, there are situations where you could do a smoother hill at the top. If you want like a real tight airtime hill, like on some of the Intamin LSMs, you could do, like thinking Maverick for example, you could do that, and it's definitely going to be spaced out a little bit more. You could do kind of this even with these guys, or even this. I mean, those are all kind of acceptable as it goes. Turn to the right and spiral through. That's not a bad idea, and then we can kind of come back around. We're just trying. I'm trying to think too, since we're already at least halfway through, and we want to consider where the station is, just kind of as we go forward. But it's not a bad idea at this point to roll around. You want to avoid too many high-speed corners, and I would never generally recommend diving more than 3 banked turns like this all at once. So we can kind of limit it right here. See how we do coming up. So that's not too bad. That hits the mid-course at a decent speed if we do a mid-course, which, yeah, why not? We can do that. So let's see where we hit. That's not terrible. Trying to figure out how we're gonna get back home at this point. Okay, so we'll come up one more so we can smooth this out a little bit. Your mid-course breaks are always going to be at least as long as the train. I would recommend a couple of tiles more. So we're gonna go with this one. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiles plus another flat piece beforehand. You can use the brakes kind of wide open, which I do. And then we put the block brake at the end. We're not going to drop the block in there just yet because I want my little ghost train still. Yeah, it's honestly one of those things where it's a kind of a thing you got to train your eye to. I think when you're coming from having built the rides in a certain way for so long in this game, it's a weird a weird thing to all of a sudden be looking at a different way like this. It's just, I think now when I see them not spaced out and stretched, it looks weird to me, and it doesn't look correct. So it's just one of those things where you kind of have to train your eye to it to get it where it needs to be. All right, I don't think I want to do that. I'm not real happy with how messy this is going to be. You kind of have to watch as far as compactness goes when you're making a big coaster like this that's stretched pretty far. I mean, to be honest, this is a pretty long stretch of coaster here. We really don't want to cram too much track in one spot, because then it's going to look really messy as far as there's a ton of track here and then not as much track over here. So you want it to be consistent, and there's kind of a meta to all that, so it's really a little bit hard to explain as far as all that goes. But it's something that I think is worth considering as you go forward. So it's if you go compact, you kind of got to make sure everything is compact. Versus if you don't, then it looks a little bit odd to have part of it yes and part of it no. All right, so let's figure out something here. I do like the idea of having some kind of corner here. Let's see if we can get underneath the lift hill again, which we cannot. But if we get a space in here, we might be able to. Kind of all about those crossovers and making sure that you get the corners to be acting correctly. See, we can potentially get away with some of that. I don't think we're close to being able to cross here. We're at 6 on the drop coming down, and we would need this to be at 3. We're actually really close, surprisingly. Not that close, though. Hey, Owen, how are you doing, sir? Go ahead and 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Back that up a bit. We're in the process of struggling with our finish for this ride. So alternating left and right turns, I kind of agree with. So for example, we're curving down this way, but then we're going to go this way, and then we're going to curve back. It looks a little boxy when you kind of go left-hand turn, then do a hill, then do another left-hand turn. It can look a little strange. So you want to make sure, A, you're using a lot of diagonals, and B, you're using you're kind of using the space a little well. Let's see here. Turning over, so... Said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm kind of thinking I'm going to do it. And that way we can get a mid-course break in and coming back the other way. It depends on how you want to do it. You can go back and forth. An out and back coaster is fine. Your want is to get a good flow. And flow is one of those things that I kind of hate using it because it's a super big buzzword, and I hate buzzwords, but the flow is what you're looking for. So a coaster that kind of smoothly goes in between stuff, so like you don't sort of arbitrarily stop a hill halfway up in the air and then go down again, or go stop it halfway in the air curve and then go down again. It's one of those things where it's incredibly easy to point out bad flow, but it's also incredibly hard to be able to describe good flow. And I'm just as guilty of that as everybody, I think. So it's a matter of personal preference for one, as far as the overall look goes. But then secondly, it's just trying to make sure that you kind of smoothly go between elements and inversions. Because the challenge right now is that we're at... I don't think I can, we'll try it just because... Shoot. It'd be kind of neat if I could get a loop in there. Might be able to get a loop off to the side here. Which we can. Let's see. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 inversions to start. It's not without precedent that there will be a second loop like this after the mid-course breaks. Montu has one. We kind of want to generally stick to just flat spins or 0 G rolls after the mid-course break run, just because they're kind of considered the smaller inversions. 0 G roll can kind of scale up and scale down, but you generally don't go quite this way, but you know, why not? Let's see what it looks like. Come in there, come out. Yeah, that's fine, pacing-wise. Come in there. I don't actually like the way that this loop and this loop are in the same orientation. It's not quite my favorite. Cobra roll, not necessarily. So B&M term for corkscrew is, well, it depends on who you talk to. They're flat spin, or wing overs is what they're actually called. On the sit-down coasters, they're called flat spins. You can interchange it with corkscrew or whatever you might like. So there's a lot of differentiation you can do between those kind of things. I'm honestly not liking how this is turning out at all. To be honest, I was actually a little concerned to do this stream today because I don't find these rides very easy to build, like not at all. And it's gonna be it's definitely a learning experience for me to build one of these on stream where I don't have the time to kind of come through and rebuild that rebuild them from the very beginning. Let's see here. We'll go mid course now. I'm kind of building this in my head as I go, changing my mind. We're gonna just run that through as a large loop and then down. See what the speed is of this. Yeah, that's not bad. No, I like the discussions. It's good to see questions, and it certainly is interesting just to see the comments and everything else. Just because I want this to be useful and helpful. And if I'm just sitting here quietly building, then it's really not useful for anybody. So more power to the questions, please. Always good to see. And now we're getting somewhere. I'm happier with this. Okay. See, we were at 3 before, and now we're going to go down to 0, I think. See how fast that is. It might be too fast. No, actually, that's good. That works really well. Flying in laydown coasters. Oh yeah, yeah. No, that would be great. I'm more than happy to do those because I like doing those a lot. Flying coasters are fantastic. And yeah, I can understand the look with the corkscrew wing over, whatever you want to call it, when you come in banking in the same direction. I kind of try and envision it as continuing through. Now, granted, it's not continuous roll on B&Ms. It's just not how they build them, or that's not how their center line works. But I feel like it sounds lousy to say, but it's almost kind of like the best you can do with it. You kind of have to deal with it. A bunch of inverts. Yeah, your supporting is fast. You've been supporting that thing like crazy. Would recommend a tutorial for that, which I might do actually at some point, because I did have some people asking me to do a coaster supports tutorial. Alright. Can we hit the brakes at this height? We could, but that's not going to be a long enough brake run. I mean, that's the thing, is RCT has its restrictions, but I feel like, you know, Parkitect does better for it, Planet Coaster does even better, but you really got to smooth it when you have the 3D to be able to look around, and it's tough, but yeah, Hydro, I do want to do diagonal brakes. I think it has to kind of have to almost fit it in there. I just don't quite know how I want to go as far as the final goes here, because I feel like we're running way far out of the ride. Yeah, custom supporting takes a lot of getting used to, and it's definitely an acquired skill and in patience, for one. So would recommend, if you want to do it, to be ready for pain and disappointment and time. But it's a good time, I think. It really is a skill, like you say, I mean, where you got to understand how the pieces work and what pieces are available to you. So if you've never done it before, yeah, it's going to be a painful experience. Okay. We fit this in. All right, cool. We're gonna call it a day before we get any further, because that was not great. Okay, block brakes. Add 2 trains. Cool. All right. couple of thoughts here. I always put a straight piece right before or right after the brake run or the station and before the lift hill, really just to give it a little bit of distance. Also give it a little bit of gap to the lift, because there's got to be a lift motor and some other things. And usually, even when you start it out of the station straight up a lift hill, you're going to see a couple of spaces. Like the Batman clones, they all have what would probably equate in RCT to like 2 pieces beforehand, before you get to the lift. This ride is just sort of on the cusp for wanting a mid-course brake run. It's definitely on the longer end, and you could make an argument for it. I didn't quite want to go for it in this type of direction, but you could go that way. This first half is really compact, has some nice crossovers and everything, and I kind of like it a lot. The second half is almost just spent trying to get back to the brake run without it looking really really messy. But it's because you never really just want to go straight. You never want an invert to look like you're just trying to get from A to B, which is kind of what this looks like, but it's not kind of the worst there. Ideally, you would come across, have your brake run a little more compact in, and then maybe come back through this area once or twice. But we didn't get to that, so that might be something for a future stream to kind of adjust things a little bit and change it around a little bit. But we will call that a modern B&M, and we'll call it a day. All right, so there's 2 down. I can look at the stats. I don't build for stats. I change them to be what I need to be if the peeps aren't riding that. I also recommend, if you're trying to build realistically, you don't worry about the stats either. But that's not the kind of gameplay that I do. But high, very high, which is pretty standard for an invert of any kind of realism in this game. You're generally going to get it from your lateral Gs, so 2.45. Now, granted, this unbanked piece here didn't really help, especially with this straight long section. I mean, you envision this as a diagonal brake run, even though there are no brakes on it, of course, because that piece doesn't exist. But that's kind of how you consider it, and to me, that is a worthwhile trade for looks over over stats. So I never did look at the stats on this guy. High, very high. So about what you'd expect on that. Anyway, here we are. Okay, so we've knocked out 2. Now we're going to go through a couple that might be pretty quick here. So we're going to look at the SLC. Let's back to the database here real quick. And now we will do a little bit more coaster history. So, having launched the inverted coaster and kind of really setting the industry on fire as far as new designs go, that was a really big innovation from B&M back in '92. Vekoma got hard on their work, or hard on our work to develop a competitor to the B&M inverted coaster, along the same lines as what B&M was doing, just at a cheaper overall cost, so that they could sell to a wider variety of parks. B&M kind of being your Cadillac of coasters, Condor being, or Vekoma sort of being your discount, your Fords and your Chevys, I guess, if we're going to take the car metaphor too far. So they developed the SLC, the suspended looping coaster, and like we said at the beginning, suspended and inverted here are interchanged. It is suspended by Vekoma's terms, but this is an inverted coaster, not a suspended coaster. Suspended, it swings. This one doesn't swing, so we're going to call it inverted. So this is a nice compact layout with we have this rollover. It's this kind of double inversion at the start through an overbank turn, an Immelman, which Vekoma called a sidewinder, and then we'll have 2 rolls in a row and wrapping around to the finale. So there were a couple of different ones of these guys. We have 2 of the prototype models. So this is the prototype model right here, and it's there's a couple of differences to the standard. One of them being that the final little drop here goes underneath the drop, and then in the other one it goes above in the standard model. So little bit of adjustments here and there. The smaller version here runs a shorter train. So there's this one and T2, now T3 at Six Flags Kentucky Kingdom. It's not a Batwing, mostly because of the kind of general shape that you're looking at. So if you go a little closer here, it's kind of an Immelman followed by a dive loop, kind of, sorta. RCT wise, yeah, it would be half cork, half loop, another half loop, half cork in the same direction. If you go the opposite direction, it's a bow tie. Or, well, no, it's not. It's a... Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, there's all very similar design to a lot of those bits. But so anyway, they went from this to the standard model, which was not very different. They sold 27 of those, which is pretty darn impressive, although B&M has still sold more. They also offered an extended layout with a Helix at the very end, and then they offered another extended model. So we kind of have this. There's also the extended layout, which essentially takes the standard inversion layout, so the standard kind of parts and pieces of this ride, and kind of jumbles them around and rearranges how they're shaped. So this guy, there were 2 of these, has your rollover here, has the overbank, and then our sidewinder's a little bit off from the station here. When we go pull out the opposite direction, have our Helix, 2 rolls that go back under the station, wrapping around to a final Helix. So this is sort of an oddball one. There's 2 of these, but then there's the standard one that just has the Helix at the end. So probably the most well-known of these is Garterlands, just because it's in a place where it's accessible. So you can see it's a standard SLC, but then we have this extra Helix off to the side. It kind of looks a little bit weird since we've got this nice rectangular layout, and then there's a Helix on the side. But it gives you some extra track and is good for all that. So we're going to build a standard SLC here just to do it. Is 5 the most inversions they have? Let me see what Odyssey has. I think it is. And I should know this, but I don't, without counting. That one has 5 too. So yes, 5 is the most that that a Vekoma invert has. 7 is the most that a B&M invert has. Not to say that that they wouldn't go more, but generally it's at 7 you're about out of track length. at that point. Okay, jump back into the game here. I haven't missed one of those yet so far, if you've been here for previous streams, so thanks to me. Okay. So we're gonna go with the standard SLC, which is a 10-car train. 10 cars here. So station is right off of the, right in front of the lift hill. And unlike our B&M, we're gonna start right up into the lift. Okay. Doesn't actually get very big. I'm gonna stretch this a little bit just because it needs to be. It's been a while since I built one of these. Stretch it a little bit less. Okay. There's a lot of ways that you can take on the standard models, and this is a big reason why I don't do recreations typically, is I don't like trying to mess with a standard model ride, because it's just gonna, there's always some kind of an adjustment you can make, and it's always not necessarily realistic because, you know, one thing here, one thing there. So we will stick with it in this regard. Are gonna, since we can't do the full banked thing, we're just gonna kind of bump it like that. The arrow launch loop is easy because it's the straight piece. Like, I'll take that. Take that any day. Alright. We want to make sure that we leave a little bit of space here so we can still get a station in. So you kind of want to mark out at least a space on either side of your station, generally 2 on the load side. So you kind of minimum is the length of your station times 4 across is sort of what you want for just a general layout like that. Yeah, there is a recreation of the SLC. It's not done very well, but it's there. So it's the challenge is just trying to get happy with the layout as it stands from, you know, kind of the real design. Go up. Give it a little bit of a space here. Yeah, I mean this is the thing, is just trying to get it to look right. Please. This. Then there are 2 rolls in a row. What I'm gonna do though is stretch it out just a little bit, put a space between them. I don't like that look, but I also, it's better than the alternative. And then it's just a matter of trying to get the balance right here. So you need 3 height to get up underneath, but then you need to clear it on this side. We're gonna slide this over 1. and actually once we finish this, I'm going to pull up one of my parks, which has, oh, we can't slide it over, which has a recreation of this that I was relatively happy with at the time, also with the supporting work. That way we can at least look at one that's properly supported. Here, corkscrew to the right. Kind of get up and over if you really want to do it that way, and kind of go down, and they have this sort of weird, like, this sort of weird banking on the end of these, where it kind of comes up and back down, because this almost would go up underneath. And this here is the perfect lesson as to why you don't do recreations. They just don't look good. It kind of banks along here, and then it comes back up and into the brakes. So there's your kind of terrible looking SLC. Which, even though it's got this many brake runs, it runs 2 trains. There were 3 trains on the original prototypes, but it really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So it's not recommended that we that you do that. Let's pull up real quick just to a little bit of difference here. This. Somewhere in my files, park. Ah, here it is. It's a minute to open. Alrighty, so Six Flags Carolina is a park that I did back in, what was it, Jimmy, 2010? It was 2010. But anyway, this is what I would say is potentially a better design for an SLC. So a couple of things that you can see here that are different. We did put an extra space in between the roll here. This is a little more abrupt, so we didn't stretch that quite as much. So this does dip a little further. We did do this tighter turn here, pulling around, and then a steep drop down, come up and over, and then come down with the banking down here, and then you come up into the brakes. Fun thing if you're doing realistic details and transfer tracks, the way that Vekoma SLCs use a transfer track is the flip track right here. So you take a section of the S-bend, and then you can use Tile Inspector to make the rest of it invisible. Back in the day, you couldn't do that, since this park was built before Open RCT, so you had to do other fun stuff with it. But this would then flip over when the train was ready to transfer off into the spare track area. So kind of a neat design there. And then this is a good way to do the whole thing. Honestly, if I did this again, I would probably look at this big wave turn here and maybe take out the flat piece at the bottom here and put a straight piece on top, just to give it a little bit of a stretch, since you can't go through the corner or a curve like the real thing is. But I can't say that I was unhappy with the overall result here. I think it turned out pretty well, and then the supports worked well overall. So anyway, that is, we'll plug my park. This is Six Flags Carolina. This was a New Element Spotlight Park, so if you go to nedesigns.com and you look up my park maker page, which is Cedar Point 6, that's my username there, that you can find to download And or whoever was asking earlier about the flyer coaster, here's a semi-recreation of the Vekoma flying coaster that is at Six Flags America in Maryland. You do not see Roar, so you see a Terminator-style GCI, and then over on the other side we have a Din wooden coaster. I haven't done this yet as my reviews for like one of my inside look reviews. I will do this one soon because I got a couple requests for it. Let's go back. So learning a couple things there, I think you can definitely figure a better way to do some of this. If we did follow those rules. Drop this a little more. So yeah, that was the Carolina was just a choice that that I had made as far as location goes, because I feel like it would be a nice place for a Six Flags park and doesn't have one. It was an inspired by Kentucky Kingdom mostly, and Geauga Lake, which was Six Flags then Cedar Fair. So it was kind of a mashup of those two parks together. So I don't do exact recreations, I do inspired by. So that was my inspired by one there. So that was, I think it turned out pretty well. I was pleased with it. All right. Continue on here just a little bit and see if we can't do a little bit more here. So what was that? Get to 10. We'll stick an extra piece in there. By doing that, it should allow us to potentially drop this down without the smooth piece there. Go, that gets us across. Because the standard ones go over top of the drop and the other ones go down. Link this to the outside. And come up. All right. That enough, I think, improves it a little bit. So we're going to call it a day, though. I think you could... Everybody has their own take on it. You can spend a long time on it. We're going to leave that alone. All right, while we're doing recreations, we're going to skip the custom one right now. We're going to jump straight to the Invertigo. We'll do that, and then once I get back, we'll jump to the other one. Okay, so the Invertigo was the inverted version of Vekoma's Boomerang. So the first one of these came to Liseberg in Sweden, as you can see right here. This was meant to be an LIM or LSM launch coaster. Oh, sorry, let me turn down the... Let's get rid of our RCT music here. Okay. Anyway, this was meant to be a LIM or LSM coaster. They had a bunch of troubles with that and turned it into a traditional chain lift, just like their standard Boomerang. So there weren't too many of these. This first one had come in, I think 2002, maybe? 1997, and then there were 4 more, and there's only one of them left running right now. So it's a rare coaster to find. So the only one that you can get, or sorry, there's 3 left. I don't know how I missed that there was more than that. Anyway, Bagatelle in France, there's one. You can have Kings Island, there's one there in Ohio, and then Movieland Park in Italy also has one. So there's another one sitting in storage, but it's unlikely that one's going to come on back. So really, these are pretty simple to build. It's just, again, a trade-off on how you want to do it from an RCT standpoint. So we are going to use the face-off cars, which they did give us as a standard game. So we'll use our compact. So first things first, as far as just building these kind of things goes, never ever 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 put your coaster station on the ground or any other track. The nice thing with inverted coasters is you can go all the way to the ground because the track's above you, but if you're building a sit-down coaster, never ever ever make your track go on the ground. If you're building an inverted coaster, never make your station go onto the ground. Thanks, Sarah. Here we go. You didn't miss much. So if you're new to the stream, we take a shot every time I forget to go back from RCDB to the game, and it is pretty often. I think you guys were pretty hammered by the last time. So these are called the face-off cars in the game. We're gonna go with 7 car trains. 7. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if you need the extra space, and I don't know if the game would allow, I think the game would probably want you to have an extra one there, so we can maybe do that. But anyway, we will come out of here and build our here. Come out the front, and we're gonna do the same thing. We can go ahead and put this in reverse incline launch shuttle mode. We're gonna do. The station always goes on the same side, it never changes. So if you're building one of these, same with the boomerang, it always goes on that side. So do not recommend changing those and putting them elsewhere. Also make sure that you have enough trains or enough cars to your train, and to make sure that you do that, just go ahead and put a couple of extra straight pieces on the side with the loop, and that way it looks okay. You want the loop to face inwards. I generally like a straight piece in between my Cobra roll just to stretch it out. You don't need that. It looks a little bit abrupt when you don't have it, but I prefer to have an extra one in there to stretch it out a little bit, and it gives you a little bit of space inside to do some work. The challenge with the game, as with all RCT2 limitations, is that you cannot have your spikes together. So on the real one, you probably noticed the spikes were together and they shared a support. You can still do that with custom scenery and just stretch it across, but it's disappointing in the fact that you can't adjust it just a little bit so they're closer together. But in my opinion, the straight piece in the Cobra roll is more important than the loop, so we can kind of leave it at that. Let's see if we need another one or not as far as the overall height goes. I think we will, because we're just barely hanging on there. Whew. So we can go with this if we want it that way, because honestly, another one of these is probably going to be too tall. But let's take a look. It does feel like a rushed ride. You would think that there would be something something more to it than that. Okay. So this kind of flies through those inversions because we have the extra steep piece on there. It's kind of a balance. It's sort of in between is where it really ought to be, but obviously since we can't quite get there. But yeah, all the boomerangs were the same, so they all had chain lift on the second side. So the chain on a real boomerang, or sorry, a sit-down boomerang, that's real, but this is as much real. But on the sit-down boomerang, the chain lift on the second side continued to pull it up a little further, and then the entire chain lift assembly dropped down, and then it released it to go backwards. Hey, Ansman. Yeah, that's a good option. And honestly, probably the one that I would suggest more so is you can, in OpenRCT, adjust the friction. And so I would say do that and have one less steep piece because this is a little bit too big. So I would say you go in here and you pull out this, you pull out this, just to make it sit a little bit more properly. Anyway, that's it for this one. Let's go with the Cedar Fair colors, something like that. So these are actually a lot of fun. These are a lot of fun. Yeah, you could add one more shallow piece at the bottom. I tend to avoid that, and only because I think it looks a little bit odd. There is a second chain lift, yes, on the Invertigos. Like if you do this, it looks okay, but I feel like at the same time it's getting just a little bit too stretched almost. But you know, here it's not awful. Certainly has an okay look. So not actually that's not bad. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it on other hills of rides, but that's okay. Um, you actually, can we get some goose facts? You always do like goose facts. We'll call that a day. Done. Skip over that one. Okay, so we're actually cruising through this because half of these are easy recreations. Wait till we get to the impulse. Okay, so next up is Giant Inverted Boomerang. And this is another one of these where we are going to make some very different changes as far as... or we're going to do it very different from the real thing, just because of the limitations in the game. Build this one right next to this one, as Six Flags might consider. Alright. Let's go look at these first. So, the Giant Inverted Boomerang is a model introduced by Vekoma in 2001. There are 6 of these, and they have a vertical reverse spike, they have a Cobra roll, they have a big loop, and the whole thing is crossed, so the layout makes a big X. So there's a number of things you can do with this to make it work. And to be honest, I'm going to do the version that was done in Six Flags Worlds of Discovery on New Element. I could also just pull that one up because it might be easier, but let's do this where I'm going to build this and then I'll pull up that ride and then you guys can look at it and see, just because it is so well done. Alright. Back to the game. Okay. So let's see. So the loop is going to go from left to right, which is actually something that the real one, or the one in Six Flags World of Discovery, does not do. I believe it's the other direction. So that's one little realistic note we will have on it, but that's fine. So they do offer these vehicles in the game also, as we're gonna do this, and it's not good. It's not gonna help your stats if you're playing for stats. If you're playing for stats, don't build one of these. Let's be honest. All right, what do we got? Robert Paget first created the goose boats in the public garden in 1877 after seeing the opera Longer End with his wife Julia Paget. Inspired by the knight's gallant rescue of the damsel by riding a swan across the lake, Paget decided to capitalize on the recent popularity of the bicycle and combine the two, designing a 2-pontoon boat with 2 wooden benches and a brass seat on top of that was concealed by a goose. Interesting. That is, I never realized what the source of those were. So you have learned me something today. So thank you, sir. That's interesting. Oh. Okay. So, couple ways you can do this. We are going to go through here and change this over to the, I know what they call this one. What do they call this one? Game. Oh, I guess you can just, it's just custom vertical coaster. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and just change over our bits here. Support limits just in case. Okay. So this is a good trick if you're new to this stream and you're new to well, any of this kind of stuff. In OpenRCT, if you go to the tile or up to the top here, select cheats, and then go over to the ride side and just check pretty much everything here. Don't recommend allow building at invalid heights just because it can screw you up. But you can change in your ride menu here the track type kind of arbitrarily, which is an easy way to take care of these things. And then you just build it in a little bit later. So when I go back, you don't have the vertical, but I can build it in as a dummy track a little bit later and just be fine with that. Alright, so we are going to go with, see what they're called. Somewhat frustrating when they're not called the same thing. Vertical shuttle cars. Alright. Vertical shuttle cars, and then we're going to select 8 of these. And I'm also going to adjust this just real briefly here. The S-bend is going to act as our station because we're using the cheats as we are. We can have the train longer than the station itself, so that's an easy one to just get out of there. Alright, let's take a look. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of these rides. Oh shoot, it's fast. I also probably do not have enough speed, because I'm guessing this is going to valley, which is honestly appropriate, because half of the time these things valleyed anyways. The original ones at Six Flags had a ton of issues. A ton. And did not go well. So I would say it's not entirely unrealistic to have them valley in the middle of the ride here. You will see if you go look at the real ones that it's that there's a lot of catwalks and escape platforms. So they have a big catwalk at the top of the Cobra roll. They have a catwalk at either side of the loop and also at the base of the lift hill spike. So yeah, not so good. This one does also have a second chain lift on the other side to catch the train and lift it up. That was part of the issues, is getting that catch to work. It's actually a pretty impressive piece of technology as far as the vertical catch intercepting the train while it's moving and making it not a super painful stop. Again, I was not a fan of these, but that is part of kind of why I didn't like those. So pretty much a catwalk at every valley point. So that's how you would do it. It's a little crawling on the Cobra roll there, so some adjustments could be made potentially. Is it normal to have the exit and entry on one side? No, it's not. In this case, where your loop is right here, you could probably hide the exit over here, maybe move it and kind of have a dummy station. It just doesn't look very good overall. It's just not a great look for the whole thing. This is a tough one to do in the game, and I would suggest you only do it if you have a really, really, really good reason to do it. It can really ruin your day. It's a tough ride to build. Okay, I rode the original at Six Flags Over Georgia, which I was not a huge fan of, and then I also rode the one at Six Flags New England, which was running the Premier trains, and those were just actually one of the worst trains I've ever ridden. I don't necessarily think it's Premier's fault. I think it's just that it was just absolutely horrendous. Really, really, really bad. So let's take a look at Six Flags Worlds of Discovery. So this is another spotlight, or well, it should have been a spotlight park on New Element. It's not. It's a gold winning park on New Element, and it is actually really incredible. It is one of my favorite favorite parks in the game. But Pacific Coaster, who built this, did a fine job on this one right here, except for the fact that it's mirrored. That's the only challenge, but take a look at the great support work here, custom support work, and the overall layout and design. I think it's incredibly well done, and this is kind of the model for the game, and probably the best one that I have seen in the game. So if you're looking to do this kind of thing in the game, look at this one. And you can see he's got the catwalks and everything down here. He's got the catwalk and the evac stairs on the Cobra roll. Got the nice towers, kind of oil derrick looking towers on either side. And it's It is a fine looking ride. I believe he adjusted the friction just a little bit since these spikes look a little small. But anyway, there we go. It's a good looking ride, definitely showing how well this can look in the game, despite the challenges. So I mean, even looking at this with that S bend, it doesn't look great, but it also doesn't look bad either. Hey Roy, good to see you here. Thank you for stopping by. Would it make sense to shoestring this so it can have brakes? You can, if you want. It's all just kind of what the effort you want to put in versus what people are going to notice. The real thing on the return spike as it comes back would catch on the lift hill, and then it would slowly lower back into the brakes. So that's an option you can use if you want to go that way, but it's not a requirement, and to be honest, it's not something that most viewers are going to look at and say, oh, you got that right. If they notice it, they're going to be impressed, but if they notice it, they're probably also a coaster fan, because it's not something you're typically going to spot. So you can go for it if you want, and I would be interested to see it. It's just, is it worth your time and effort? All right, well, let's get back to it. So we have our giant inverted boomerang there. Clear that boy off. All right. So now I've got custom SLC, and I don't quite know how I want to deal with this one yet. I think I'm going to do like Odyssey, but let's jump back to our handy dandy RCDB, and let's take a look at the custom Vekoma SLC. So there are two custom SLCs, which is really kind of only one. There are the Great Nor'easter at Maurice Piers, and there's Odyssey at Fantasy Island. So Great Nor'easter is a standard SLC, but with a couple of changes. The station is in a different spot. The station is where one of the brake runs is, and there's a straight section before it. And the supports are all different because they had to contend with this water slide and with this log flume and everything else. So you can see where the station is here, where there would typically be a where there would be a brake run, and then there's just a straight shot here before the lift hill. So it is custom technically, but it's really an SLC that had space issues. It is an interesting looking ride, but it was terrible when I rode it. Supposedly the track replacement that they had done recently has helped, but the vest trains when I rode it certainly did not help. It was one of the worst SLCs I've done, and I've done probably 14 now, but it was really bad. But yeah, Mavericks and I rode it together, and it was just horrendous. Oh, thank you for following and everything. I appreciate it. I'm not ever quite sure what the reach of these things is, but I'm hoping that they are becoming more interesting, but we're doing good. All right, SLC Custom. Let's look at the actual custom one. So this is Odyssey at Fantasy Island. This one's a bit of an oddball one. It was Vekoma, is Deja Vu. So these are all Vekoma right here. So Odyssey is an odd one in that it's massive. It's 167 feet. They actually wanted this to be 200, but you can kind of see here just how, here's a construction shot of it, just how big this thing is. It doesn't do a whole heck of a lot, and they also spent a lot of time fixing the thing. They had to actually lower a number of these inversions. So if you're looking right here, there's this kind of curve that goes sort of through the loop, and then there's also this sidewinder element here. Both of those had to be lowered because of the winds coming off of the coast. This is on the coast of the UK. Would stall this ride, and it would stall out partway through. So they had a number of issues with that, and had to modify this a couple of times. It's not gotten great reviews as far as ride experience goes, so I can't speak to it. Hopefully next year I will be able to speak to it, but it did get a repaint, so it looks a lot nicer. It's this yellow and black certainly looks sharp. But we are going to make one of these guys, I suppose, and do something similar to the real thing here. Here's a good shot of it. So it's got a loop, a Cobra roll, a turnaround here, this Immelman into a Helix. There's a big stretch corkscrew thing, and then back. Yeah, just put some boosters on there. Just add some of the LSMs, and you're good to go. All right, so let's go back and take a look we're gonna jump back and forth between the B&M and the Vekoma train or track, just so we can do the big inversions because it's gonna have those. Okay. So let's start with our station again. Station is never on the ground. This is a 10-car train. That's set up. It's always kind of a wonder to me that this ride even exists. Like, I really feel like Vekoma must have been sort of floored to have this phone call from Fantasy Island saying, "Hey, we want this really giant inverted coaster," and I feel like they probably were kind of going, "You mean from us? Like not B&M?" Because it's odd, and they spent a lot of money on this. They spent $25 million on this, and it's that's as much as Millennium Force cost, and look at what they got out of it. So do not recommend. Okay. Yeah, so it's huge cost. So they, in my opinion, they made a mistake. But you know, now we have a weird, unique, interesting coaster, and here we are for it. All right, let's send this one around. 10-car train for this. Well, that's the thing, is you can't fault Vekoma. They offered an affordable product that made it affordable for even small parks to buy a large coaster. So to be honest, they were smart. They were able to give SLCs to the masses, and I can't fault that. They did a very nice job on that, and I would say, you know, more power to them because they definitely made a big difference for that. See, is Intamin more expensive than B&M? Not necessarily. It depends what you're getting. It's there's definitely a difference between their different models and costs, and there's certainly site conditions and other things. Honestly, site conditions tend to push Intamins up a little bit higher, considering that when a coaster manufacturer sells a coaster, they sell the coaster. They're not selling all of the ancillary stuff. Like, they're not selling the footers, they're not selling all the electrical systems and everything like that. They're selling the ride cabinets, not the electrical system to it. So the park is going to be responsible for putting in the electrical system or the footers and things like that. Intamins have way more columns than B&Ms do. Footers are expensive, so that therefore pushes up the site work for an Intamin to generally be higher than a B&M is, because they have to have more footers, so that's more concrete in the ground, that's more excavations to be done. So in general, even if the Intamin is cheaper, you're going to see that the groundwork tends to be a little bit more than something like a B&M. Don't get me wrong, B&M groundwork is also pretty expensive, but it's still that's the thing. So quick note on Cobra rolls in this game. Real Cobra rolls flare out in both directions. So in this instance here, the first part would flare out to the left, and the second part would flare backwards to the right. I don't like the look of how close they come to the bottom, unless you're doing a really stretched variety like Hydra at Thorny Park, for example. So I tend to bank mine both the same direction. I think it looks better. Your mileage may vary. You may not agree with that, which is fine. So just FYI, in case you're wondering why I did it, that's why. Alright, now I do want to get this thing threaded through the... No, I don't think we're going to be able to do that, so why don't we... on back. That's funny you say that, Dr. Guy, because it's that kind of stuff happens way more often than you would think it would go. Like there's a lot of stuff where especially in this industry where we look at it and go, what do you mean it's like that? Or what do you mean you didn't account for those things? And everybody kind of shrugs their shoulders and then goes, well, shoot, I guess we better do it now. And so it's yeah, it's not not uncommon at all, which is somewhat scary when you think about it often. But that's how it goes. Okay. Let's see what the speed difference is on this. Trying to do something similar to how Odyssey did. Yes, big parks are not free from that at all. You are quite right. There's there are stories that could be told if NDAs were not in place. Let's put it that way. I don't necessarily mean me, I just mean everybody else in the industry too. And for those who don't know, NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement, which is also why I don't talk about my job here. I will certainly offer my advice on the industry if you want to get into the industry and like what to do and that kind of thing, but on the whole, you just don't touch that generally. It's definitely struggling a little bit here as far as the overall design goes. I think what I'm going to do is just come down with a flat section here. You were in the industry, just Universal is, you know, bad. The theme park industry, I work as a theme park, or well, I work in the design and engineering department for a major theme park. So I help design coasters among other things, which is kind of why I do these series. Um, because I think there is something to be taught as far as realism goes in the game, and I think I can be the one to teach it. So that's kind of why I do it. Shoot. All right, let's go back to inverted coaster real quick. I keep forgetting that the SLC does not have these elements. So let's go to compact inverted coaster. There we are. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was for anybody who played this game as religiously as I did back in the day. Um, this was sort of the dream gig at the time was to be able to say, all right, yeah, this is what I do for a living. Uh, I'm not a huge fan of math either. Not my favorite, but certainly made it work. Um, Now, granted, I don't do um, I don't do a lot of math in my day-to-day job. I'm more of a project manager than anything else. But synthetic chemist, that sounds interesting. That's definitely more than I've got going for me as far as that goes. I was never great in chemistry. just a little bit too short from getting that one to fit. A little bit too short. Yeah, true that. Sell for days. Okay. That may work, actually. Come up on the Helix and see if we can't cross. There we go. Look at that. Now we're going. Fine. Kind of ended up being a semi-recreation of Odyssey. Yeah, Hydra, I don't do a lot of math. I really, more than anything, I'm a project manager, so I manage projects. I'm not doing any of the calculations that make stuff go. That is for our engineers that we contract out. So really, more than anything, it's for the kind of stuff that I'm doing is just managing people, managing time, and all that. Get me to ride the coasters early. I can, and I have before. I rode Mako at SeaWorld Orlando 100 times before it opened to the public. So in that regard, yes, I can ride things more before other people do. And in the mornings, I can certainly call up maintenance if I really want to, and go ride that, but I don't generally do that. That's not my thing. Generally, I got meetings anyway, so there's not a whole lot you can do there. All right, 406. We'll leave that as it is. And we'll go ahead and come through here and. So unlike B&Ms, the Vekomas are more likely to do things like a big Helix like this. So this is more fitting to something like this kind of a ride than, say, a B&M. Okay. Take a look. So now that we've gone through and built these, we can come back through and build in the elements. See, the real one was yellow and black. Let's go with that bright electric yellow, black. And so when you do build in the dummy track like this, build them backwards. So definitely make sure that you're building it in opposite the direction of travel, or else you will accidentally merge the ride together. You don't want to do that. What am I looking at? Go. The other way, wasn't it? No, that was right. Corkscrew, and then we'll come down. Paint it up. Okay. We'll call that a day. That's our custom SLC. Our entrance and exit almost always on opposite sides. Not necessarily. There's a number of coasters. Any B&M wing coaster doesn't have it. There's a number of coasters that I've been on, older coasters typically, that have station entrance and exit on the same side for whatever reason. Sometimes if there's a load station and an unload station, you might see it where you've got one on one side and then the unload station on that same side. So it's an option potentially. Um, it is just easiest to run them on different sides, just because that helps you kind of stretch things out a little bit, and it's easier to operate from a station standpoint. Oh, there we are. All right, so let's call that one day. So that one is done, and now we've got a couple of more. All right, so we are a little over an hour and a half into our stream. So what I'm going to do at this point is I always recommend that we take a break, because if you've been sitting here for an hour and a half, you should get up and walk around, stretch a little bit, go get a drink, go get a snack, and come back. So I'm going to run ads just to support the channel real quick, but then I will be back in like a minute or so, and we will continue on going. Next up is Impulse Coaster from Intamin. We're going to do a Giovanola, and then we're also going to look at a modern modern Vekoma, like has just opened a Trips Drill, and then we may play a little bit more with some others. Why are the loops different? Because the compact inverted coaster doesn't have the large loop, so we used the B&M coaster track to do the large loop, just so that we could fit the size in there, because I didn't want to do the little tiny loops for a ride that was this big. So it's the trade-off you make since you don't have the pieces there. We just kind of merge it together, and it works fine. It's not ideal, but I think my eye is at this point kind of trained that doesn't bother me when I see a coaster like that. I much prefer the layout than anything else. So anyway, we will. I'll be right back. Give it about a minute, and I will see you guys in just a second. All right, we have returned. Welcome, Koleyoshi. Thank you for stopping by. So, welcome back to Andrelczyk Amusement Academy. Now, I say this at least once a stream just to kind of plug it. I never want to hammer it over folks' heads, but if you want to support the stream, you can subscribe to the channel now. And if you want to do that, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can actually do that for free, and it helps support me, and it's well, for free for you guys. So consider subscribing if you like, or if not for that, go find the YouTube channel, which is in my profile just down below, and go subscribe to that for free, and that will certainly help out as I continue to make these videos and bring this content out. So that's all I have to say about that, but thank you to the ones who have, and the 2 subscribers so far, so thank you guys. All right, so let's jump back into it. We got a couple more to look at here. Feel our music once again. Okay. Intamin Impulse Coaster. So these were kind of an interesting very short run ride. So let's jump over to the database and look at Linear Gail. So this was the first and often forgotten impulse coaster. It was pretty darn boring. It was a straight launch track that had a spike on either side. The spike was vertical, but that was it. There was no twist. There was no anything else to it. It was just vertical spike to vertical spike. It was down in the middle of the city, which is pretty interesting, in Tokyo, Japan. This park you might recognize as the park where Thunder Dolphin is. You can see it in the background here, going through the Ferris wheel. It's didn't last very long either. It went from 1998 to 2010, which is still a fair difference or distance in time, in 12 years, but not super exciting. But thankfully there were more. So if we look at the next one that came around, so Steel Venom was the next one here at Geauga Lake. And now this is at Dorney Park. So this one has a twist on the spike, as you can see right here. Kind of a neat way that this is supported with the quad rail Intamin track, which is the strongest. So it wraps up there and takes a look. So yeah, it seems that Possessed at Dorney Park is closing, which is unfortunate, but not totally a surprise considering that it's a pretty expensive coaster to operate. Wiki Twister at Cedar Point should unfortunately be going as well here soon, but it's a bit of a shame. There's a couple of other ones that happened here. So Vertical Velocity, here's a good shot of what the actual ride looks like in total. So back spike and a twist at the top, swing ship with extra steps. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, the rumors are that it'll move to California's Great America, but I would be surprised if it does, to be honest. They could get it. It'll be kind of funny since Dorney Park seems to be the repository for all the used Cedar Fair rides, but I wouldn't hate it. I always hate to see a coaster close, even one that's as sort of average as these are. They're kind of fun. So two varieties exist out there beyond the twist and the spike. So one that started as a twist and a spike, but ended up being a little more unique is the one at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom in California. The city has a height ordinance, and this ride exceeded the height ordinance. So here is a spike that's at 45 degrees. So you kind of have a roll that goes up and stalls out and then comes back down. Here's the roll from the side. Actually pretty interesting and a pretty good ride. I liked that it was unique, more or less. So it was cool design. So I would recommend it if you're building something like this. The challenge is in RCT you can't really do an angled roll like this, so you kind of have to deal with that. So then the other one, of course, as we go back in here, is Wiki Twister. So Wiki Twister has 2 twisted spikes. It is also the tallest and the fastest. So here we are. Are any of these in real life that have a full circuit? Yeah, there's launched wise, there was one. It was Volcano the Blast Coaster, like Sheep said, that did have a full circuit. It is gone now, unfortunately. Intamin also made 2 lift hill inverted coasters. The reason I'm not doing those in the game is that there's just not a good way to build them. So there's not the right track, there's not the right trains, because the impulse trains can't take banking and diving corners in the game, so it's a shame. Volcano was great. It was a really good coaster. It was a little bit weird in the fact that it was way too short for what it was. You ended up hitting the brakes at a ton of speed, but it's still fun. So would definitely recommend, but sad time no more. There is a new one coming in at the Chongqing Wanda theme park in China, in Chongqing, using Intamin's new track style and a new support work and all that. So it's kind of interesting seeing a new one come in. But sort of our standard one, we're going to call the vertical spike and the twisted spike. So we're going to do this one. Yeah, so there's this guy. in the real game, in the game, which I guess theoretically you could do it. It's, oh shoot. Thank you. Thank you. So there's this one in the game. Nothing like this exists in real life. It would probably not be able to very easily, but it's an interesting ride, interesting concept anyway. But all of these are just in a straight linear design, which we're gonna look at. So you can put these pretty low to the ground. I still wouldn't recommend putting the station straight on the ground, but you can put it next to it. The way that these work in the game is that it uses a powered launch passing station, and it picks up speed. The general operation of these in real life is it launches forward, part way up the spike, backwards, most of the way up the spike, forwards again, full way up the spike, backwards again, full way up the spike, and then forwards a third time, most all the way up the spike, and then stops in the station. That's fine. Drink whatever you got. In reality, we wouldn't be launching, fully only in the station. There's a whole strip of linear induction motors along here. That's part of the reason why they're so expensive, is linear induction technology is more expensive to operate than linear synchronous technology. It's a simpler design overall, but it's also really, really power hungry, which is what costs a fair bit of money. So, in order to make this look aesthetically correct as far as realism goes, we're going to come out the front with a nice long section here, and we're going to come out the back with a couple also. The only option you have here is Intamin's quad rail track, which is fine because that's what we use, unless you're trying to build linear Gail, which did not do that, but that's fine. So we're gonna stretch these out again. So here's how we're gonna do this: is we'll go one shallow, one steep, and then vertical. It's just kind of the best looking option that you can do. And then start here, 1, 2, 3, and you can do 4 here. That puts us at 32 is that last one there. Then we'll do this. So it does back into the station. To be honest, I haven't built one of these in the game in many moons, so I don't actually know how quite how long it can go, or if you can back up into the station properly. Yeah, you could honestly do a proper impulse coaster that, oh shoot, not what we want. Oops. An Omnimover impulse coaster. Alright, so train-wise, you're going to want 7 cars per train, 2 across by 2 rows. Get that right here. Okay. So, too far, too fast. Back this off just a little bit. See? Zara, if you're still here, that may be a good one for you to shoestring. Is shoestring the impulse to get faster as it goes along, because ideally it would hit, say, on your first run, you're probably going to hit here, and then the second, or reverse, you're going to hit like here, and then on the second run, you would hit, say, here, up at the top, and then the second run, you'd hit up here, and then the third run, kind of on this, you'd probably hit like there, because you'd be slowing down a little bit, and then it would back into the station rather than go forward into the station. So something to consider kind of as you go through with all that. It's a cool idea, but trying to back into the station is an interesting one, especially. But this is the best way to do it. Just make sure you have a long runway on the front here, even if it's not actually being used, as in this instance where it's not being used, but that's fine. So let's do the Twister colors. Okay. That's it. That's, I mean, impulse is easy. So the boosters launch it backwards as well as forwards. Yes. So the idea is that both the station and the launch track, so all of this portion right here and the station itself are the launch track. So the first launch is going to be out the front, then it's going to be backwards, then it's going to be forwards, then it's going to be backwards, and then it's going to be forwards again, and then slowing down at the end. Well, hey Jeff, thanks for coming by. Appreciate you joining us here. The other thing that these rides have that is pretty interesting is the back spike has a brake, and on the second backwards run, the brake will engage and hold for just a second. Now, it doesn't operate on most of them. I think Possessed was the last one that it did operate on. But it brakes and holds the whole train for just a second, enough for you to kind of slam into your restraint, and then it releases it. So pretty interesting, also pretty power heavy. So most of the park's maintenance teams had turned that off because it just costs a lot to run and it's a maintenance nightmare. So not surprising to see most folks get rid of that, but it's a pretty cool feature that that some of them did have. All right, get rid of that one. All right, let's jump to Giovanola because we're gonna do that way. Okay. Okay, so Giovanola was a track fabricator for Intamin and for B&M a little bit later, and was a track fabricator all the way up until B&M started making their own track. So they actually, their offices were literally right next door to B&M's, and they operated out of a warehouse nearby and fabricated everything on site in Switzerland. They went off in 1999 and built their first roller coaster, which was Anaconda at Gold Reef City in Johannesburg, South Africa. They followed that up with two more, Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain and Titan at Six Flags Over Texas. But this was the only inverted coaster that they made. Looks like a B&M, except for a couple key differences. Key differences being the trains, which are two across, and the support work, which is a fair bit different. It has a lot of cross beams on here. So B&M supports, you almost rarely see a cross beam. Let's take this side support here on the 0G roll. You can see this horizontal cross beam that comes across. If you're making support work on B&M, unless it's the lift hill or unless it's like a 300-foot tall support, like on a Giga coaster, does not have a cross beam here. So that's a big difference. You can see the loop supports too are a little bit different also. So these guys, this massive beefy support on this thing, pretty huge and pretty rudimentary. I think B&M's look a little bit more refined, I would say. And then you can see the two across trains here as well. Supposedly, a super intense and a really good coaster is just a pain to get to because flights to South Africa are expensive. I've looked, but it can be pricey. Another difference, and I don't know if there's a shot of it. This is the original color scheme, magenta and green. Let's see, is there a shot? Well, here's a model of it. So you can see the double roll here. The way that the B&M rolls were done, the wingovers, is coming from without banking and then kind of snapping through. This is a continuous roll here. And this is so this is two corkscrews in a roll, or in a row, getting tongue-tied, two corkscrews in a row, which is something that the B&M inverted coasters don't do. Not necessarily as sturdy. I mean, the track design is pretty similar. Most likely it's just the way that it was engineered. I would expect that they had a different engineering firm do the columns. Now, Stengel did do the design on the ride, who also does B&Ms. So it's not out of the question that it could be something strength and material wise. It also could be the question as to how they roll their supports, because there are different ways to roll supports with different strength, and also how often you put the support through or on the track. So how often you come across a support. So there's a lot of different factors that really develop how one of these things goes. So hard to say, for example, but it's it is a little bit different. 1,200 is not too bad, and I'm sure that's pandemic prices right now, because when I was looking at it from Florida at one point from Orlando, it was in some cases it was well over $2,000. 1,200 is not awful, to be honest. If it weren't the middle of a pandemic, I'd consider that. That's pretty good. So yeah, South Africa is limited now, being that Ratanga Junction, which was the other park down in South Africa, has closed. So unfortunately, we are out of luck as far as that goes. We have it all a little bit messed up right now. Anyway, let's go to one train for now. Yeah, it's oh shoot. Nobody caught that one. I'm surprised. Let's back to the game. There you go. There we go. Take the train. Yeah, it is. That's the next next stream. It's just gonna be me making reservations. I cannot wait to go on a coaster trip again. Well, not limited to 600 riders per hour. It's just with the two trains at two across, so they're 10-car trains, which means they can take 20 people per ride ride train. Two trains and the ride being probably 2 minutes long or so. That's probably what it works out to be as far as the math goes. So not totally out of the question that it would be something like that. Real B&Ms, well, I say real B&Ms, actual B&Ms generally are going to get around that too, unless they're being operated incredibly well, which is usually not the case. So I actually tried to build a backyard coaster when I was younger. When I was in middle school, I went and made a design for a coaster, and I tried to build it, and an interesting learning experience. Put it at that. Certainly, I did get as far as building some track and some supports, and it was interesting. Expensive, and also has permitting issues. So consider those options if you ever go for a real life backyard roller coaster. Let's see how this does as far as that loop goes. I kind of picture Anaconda as having what I would envision as the medium loop in the game, if we ever had a medium loop. So it's definitely a back and forth. You can decide if you want to go big loop or small loop. I kind of edge towards the bigger for all that, but you know, generally yes, you would need a permit for that. I mean, it probably depends country to country as far as that goes, but in the U.S. anyway, yes, there are zoning laws and all sorts of other fun stuff that would be required for something like that. Especially in our little residential neighborhood, I really don't think our neighbors would have taken super kindly to a roller coaster in that. Now, granted, homeowners associations are pretty limited to the U.S. and are in general kind of stupid, but I'm currently living in a community that has a pretty expensive HOA, so can't yell at it too hard. I can't say I like it either. Alrighty, so that actually works pretty well. I put this flat bit at the top because the Giovanolas do use that on theirs, or well, I say Giovanolas plural, but there's only the one example. But my guess in that it's similar to some other rides that do the same is it takes off the stress on the chain before the ride drops off of the drop. So it helps prolong the longevity of the ride to get it flat first and disengage that chain before you go down the drop. So that's why I've done that. Now we'll do a pretty... Supposedly these helixes are pretty darn intense. A real thing. I don't know if we'll go that intense, but we'll... And similar, let's see if that lines up. It does not. Yeah, Eurostar is sort of a unique thing, since Intamin had a hand in that also, as far as brokerage and other things go. But Oscar Bro and who's famous for Olympia looping, and Werner Stengel, both of those guys kind of were the main instigators of that incredible ride, which thankfully is now saved. For now, it's operating in Russia, but at least it's operating. Okay. Let's see what the speed of these things is, because I kind of don't really want to go super tall with the corkscrews. This is kind of a wide helix, but it's easy enough to theme. Let's see how we're looking. Actually, not bad. I can probably go one lower than that, too. I don't think it's out of the question that we could do that. Now, it's just depending on how we want to run the brake run. It might actually allow us to do... Squeeze it through there? Huh? There we go. There it is. Nice little roll, or nice little bit up underneath of the station there. Okay, so we're trying to get back to 3, which do here. Right. Here we go. Those collaborations are interesting, and it's not totally uncommon that that's a thing that happens. So, for example, Mock Rides does a lot of air gates for other rides. So, like some of our B&M, our early B&Ms, I believe Mock did the air gates for Kraken, and it's not uncommon to have other manufacturers do different things. So, like, for example, we talked last week about the wooden coasters with GCI, that Skyline Attractions is actually the one who designs the layout and does the engineering on the coaster, and GCI is the one that builds it. Or something like Gravity Group, where Gravity Group designs it, and Martin and Vlemenex is the company that builds it. So you end up with a coaster that the make is a Martin and Vlemenex, but the actual designer, if you go by designer, is B&M. Or, sorry, Gravity Group. Brain fart there. Actually, I'm pretty happy with this one. I think it turned out rather well. Anybody ever wants to do a Giovanola, which I don't think I've really seen. I know Robbie92 had done one or two that never did make it out of planning, although he currently has a Giovanola in his park, Jazzland, which hopefully will be released in a future time. But I don't know how long that's going to be. Probably a little while. All right, so there is our Giovanola. Okay. Go for it. I also post, so I uploaded all the other previous weeks this last week. So if you go to the YouTube channel for each of these raw streams that I've uploaded, you can now download this track or the map here, and it's if you want to take a look at the tracks. I'm going to be updating the one for the wooden coaster here shortly to include all the improvements that I did, and we can do that. So chain lift doesn't actually do anything for slowing down. It will increase it to whatever that speed is. Really, the only reason you would do the chain lift on the diagonal is for the look of something there that kind of looks like brakes. So you can do it, and it's fine. I don't necessarily like the sound of it. I'll sometimes use theming and things like that, but the only way that you can really do diagonal brakes or like incline brakes is with a shoestring, which at some point I may do that. Housekeeping. All right. So, yeah, mini suspended coaster track, that works too. All right, so the last one that we have in our little set here, but then might do some other ones since I'm actually ahead on time here for once, is our no, I thought it can. Suspended mini coaster. Yeah, no, we're good on diagonals. Yeah, you can certainly do it. Okay, so the last one here, and I actually didn't really think through what I'm going to use for this. I'm probably going to use the B&M, but we're going to look at a modern Vekoma coaster. So the real modern Vekoma coaster started with Battlestar Galactica back in 2010, and this was kind of well in advance of a lot of the things. This was early additional track bending and different trains and things like that. So initially, this ride, which is at Universal Studios in Singapore, opened, and I don't know if they have any early shots. Okay, so it opened with a 4-across sit down and a 4-across inverted coaster. So the sit down coaster was a family coaster, and the inverted coaster was sort of the adult coaster. So the sit down one doesn't go upside down and all that kind of thing. So pretty cool looking ride. They had some troubles a couple years into it, though. They started finding some hairline fracturing in the trains and in the some of the track issues. Part of that was the heaviness of the trains. So they redesigned them, and now there are 2-across trains and some pretty sweet looking sit down trains with these wings here, so you can kind of see that. And then it's reopened, and it's done well ever since. The blue one has since been repainted in black. So there's Human and Cylon are the two sides. So pretty cool design, and a neat dueling coaster, because there had always been rumors of a sit down and invert as a dueling coaster. I remember back when it happened, I built one in RCT. If you look up Firefly on New Element, I built mine themed to Firefly sci-fi show, which is my favorite show, and kind of released that. So it's a pretty cool ride. So this one kind of does a lot. I actually like the inverted coaster layout quite a bit here. But this went a long time before any new one kind of came up. So more recently, we have a one. Let's So more recently at Tripstrill. Tripstrill. We have Halzuberkopf, which I've been told means like head over heels, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's here. So this is a fantastic looking new coaster that just opened this year, actually. So poor year to open, unfortunately, but a pretty cool, exciting ride. It's intertwined with a Vekoma Junior Boomerang. So kind of a neat looking design. Has sort of a new track style, pretty thick pipe spine, and then track, and definitely new track bending, a lot smoother overall. These have airtime, these have a lot of rolls, and more importantly, they have lap bars. Only lap bars, so no vests, no anything else. So very freeing, as you can see right here. It's a pretty cool seat and a good design overall. They have been making a number of junior suspended coasters, which are inverted coasters. They just call suspended. So it's a good looking ride. Vekoma had shown me a couple of these a few years ago, and I'm really happy to see that they've sold one. They're trying to get one through at Tato Park in Ireland. The locals are fighting it pretty hard, but hopefully we'll see another one of these soon, and then hopefully some more of these will come in. So really good looking layout, really smooth. So you can kind of see the overall space here before they've added some of the theming, which theming will come in future years, as Tripstrill tends to do. But it's a pretty cool design. Sheep, I think you're right. I'm pretty sure that's the case. It is the first inverted coaster that just has a lap bar that goes upside down. There's none of the B&Ms do, of course, and the Intamins had their over the shoulder also. So I'm pretty sure it is the first one. It is similar. Well, so it's not necessarily in the middle of nowhere. You just can't see the rest of the park because it's off to the right. Tripstrill is pretty rural. It's in Germany, sort of kind of near the border with France and Belgium. It's a great park, absolutely beautiful park, and highly recommend it. I went before this coaster was built, but it is a gorgeous park, and I would love to return very soon. So let's try and build one of these. I'm not quite sure of how we're going to go about that, but because we don't have the track style, I'm going to use the B&M just because it gives me the most options as far as shaping and everything goes. I hope that at some point somebody like X7 or whomever will build or will give us an option for some different track, but until then, we'll see what we can do. Yes, let's drink something. There we go. You didn't miss anything. All right. So the real one of these guys has a 10-car train, which is actually pretty much, for the Vekomas, that's pretty much the standard. It's not bad. And yeah, new track will be part of the save format, which is definitely nice to see some future stuff like that. Now it just requires somebody to actually build it, which is the bigger challenge, I think, in some of these cases, is just trying to get somebody to actually make one. But it doesn't seem too hard, at least as far as X's stuff goes. Ooh, I hate that green. Put this one. Okay. So we haven't done any diagonal lifts or steep lifts yet this stream. We could kind of do another one at some point, but I prefer to have the shallow lifts, even though some of these are steeper. Like if you look at Banshee, for example, it's definitely tough. There is no time frame for the new save format. It's talking to different people, you'll hear different things, but I mean, it'll be ready when it's ready. Is kind of the real answer. I'm sure hoping soon, but it's it's going to be a little while, I think. So that's a shame, but I would rather them perfect it and get it to us when they're done, and I'm kind of okay with that. All right, so let's do something a little more free-flowing here, perhaps. And yeah, I am hoping he can do something with it. And then X7 or Space K can maybe give us some new trains. Although I don't quite know where he's gone recently. I messaged him the other day and he has not gotten back to me. I haven't seen him for a while, so hopefully he's all right. Put a straight piece there. Be consistent. It's always important to be. We get the safest park in the country. Us being safe. Not too bad, so that's a good overall design. Actually, let's go ahead and flatten this, get it a little bit faster. And then we can squeeze this underneath. So these do have airtime hills. With the lap bar, it's pretty cool. Ooh, nice. My first bot. That's exciting. Thank you, Mr. JCNF Avatar 32. I feel like that means I've hit the big time, doesn't it? But you're right, though. The Giovanola layout does look pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. I'm super excited for it. I mean, it's going to be a great ride whenever it gets done. That's probably going to be too fast. One. Build this before it gets there. I want to see how it looks. Oh, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Okay, we'll cross back under the lift hill here. Yeah, it's definitely, it is weird. It certainly looks odd too, but so it goes a little bit, but pretty happy with this one so far. Where do I have to go? Zero, I guess. Back up one. Dive down. Unsupported, but yeah, I can do that. Coaster details. I did want to do a detail stream at some point where we talk about like catwalks and the best way to build some of those sorts of things. And I don't like, I might not fully do one of the things in the episode, but at the same time, I can do I can kind of show like best of the type. Like here's a good example of one. Like pull up a real park or one of the RCT parks that does it. So like elements wise, all right, is it true certain elements don't use certain elements? So yeah, it is, and I'm sure some of that has to do with the lap bar restraint for one, and some of it has to do just with the flowing nature of things. So the layout designer for Vekoma, who I'm friends with, he's really about like flowing layouts, curving layouts, really kind of flowing back and forth, lefts to rights, to diving corners and things like that. And really, the loops and the Immelmans and dive loops and stuff like that, they'll come in if it means that it helps the layout flow, but if it doesn't, then it's really going to be more focused on rolls. So like this one is really focused on rolls. They do offer inverted coaster layouts that have other things, so it's not to say that they won't do it or couldn't do it, but the layouts that he's currently putting out are more so based on this kind of a design. So that's really why you're not necessarily going to see some of that. How fast? Yeah, let's do. Four. Trying to count the spacing. I was trying to see if I could get this up and over the lift hill, but to be honest, that would get us a little too close to the lift hill, and it would be a pain in the rear as far as theming goes for all the details around the lift hill. So we're just gonna do a roll like this. This might be it, actually. Put our brakes in here. Line up. Not line up. Hill. Do a couple different things. We could go in and just widen up this. I don't typically like to see turns that have variable radii like that, but kind of okay with it here. Where it kind of comes in just a little bit, and we'll put a little bit of a hill there just to boost our train around it. Yeah, you could certainly interlock. On B&Ms, it's not super common on inverted coasters. It only happens once, actually, on Nemesis Inferno in Thorpe Park in England. So it's not something that happens super often, but it is a thing that can happen. So it's not to say that it wouldn't. So you know what I wonder? This. Back and then dip under the brake run. Up, gotta put our flat track there. Brake runs. The only issue with this is that the brake run's not long enough. If you were running one train, this would be fine. But for two, would want it longer. I'll mess with it later, see if we can make it longer. We could get another one out of this here. Then we could get one before the lift hill theoretically, but we'll call it 2 for now. It's a little bit short there. We probably want another, say, 3 or 4 pieces on that brake run there, but that's a better ending, or at least more interesting. All right, let's take a look. So generally, Vekomas are going to have a flip track for their transfer track, and generally that's still the same on their newer ones, or it's going to be some sort of a railroad type switch where it's going to basically just rotate into position. There was a shot a second ago in. Let me see if I can find it on database here. Okay, jump over real quick. So if you look in the bottom right here, very bottom right, you can see that this one's not a switch track. This one's a rotational track. So the other rails are there, just inside and on the outside here, and this whole little bit will just rotate slightly to align it with the transfer track here. So you're not going to have a sliding transfer or anything like that. It's just going to rotate just slightly to connect up. The best way to see this is Disneyland Paris. If you look at their Big Thunder Mountain, there's some good pictures of this. So you can see all these, which this is a Vekoma as well. All these switches have just a rotational piece here, so this whole bit just rotates to connect up to the other spot. So that's typically what you're going to see on some BNet or some Vekomas like the SLCs, for example. It's going to be a flip track where you'll have your have the flip track on top and then on bottom, and when we want to transfer off a train, the whole thing is going to flip, and then you'll back the train onto the transfer track, and then you'll flip it again to get it going. That's how some suspended coasters work too. So just a consideration there. Okay, so now we have gone through all of what I had, but I actually have some bonus things to consider, because there are more than just a couple of more than just this as far as inverted coasters go. Let's clear this off real quick. Before we go anywhere else, what I did want to do is go back through and look at some of the improvements that were made on the last week's stream. Let's open up Amusement Academy number 3, wooden coasters. Let's reload that. Sometimes when you load it up, it doesn't want to load all of the custom trains and things like that, so it just gives you errors as it did. Still nothing. All right, we're gonna put this on here real quick while I restart the game. So let's look at some of these while the game gets ready to restart. So here's one that I couldn't do because we don't have the trains for it. So this is a company, Fabbri, and they make one kind of inverted coaster. It's called the Astral. There are 4 of them, and they're really not anywhere super easily accessible. So the first one is here at Zoo Safari in Italy, and it's not a super easy to get to part of Italy. I mean, it's not like next to Rome, for example. Here we are. Let's open up coaster again, and so it's a weird layout. It's made to be portable, or well, it's set up on a space frame, so it can be portable. It's got this sort of inclined loop on here. Let's see if we can get these pictures to load. Come on, load it up. Here we go. So we have this sort of inclined loop to the thing, a little bit different track style throughout. Not a whole lot going on. There's a mid-course break here in the middle with a Helix. It's a little bit weird. There's a I don't know. See the rest on YouTube later. Need to do some RCT stuff. Thanks for coming, Jeff. I really appreciate you stopping by. So here's the whole layout. You can kind of see the whole thing there. There's really no need for that mid-course brake run there in the middle. It's an oddball kind of layout. But like I said, there's one in Italy. There's one in Kazakhstan, and theoretically there's two in China. They may be the same coaster, but the results are still pending as we're trying to dig up some more information on that. The weird bit with this is the trains. So the trains are 3 across, which doesn't really make sense in any design, but Zamperla certainly thought so because their Thunderbolt coasters are also 3 across. It's 3 deep too, so it takes 9 people, and generally when you go to a theme park, you're grouped in either 2s or 4s. I mean, on average, not to say that you won't go with a group of 3, but it's kind of an odd thing, and I would imagine more often than not, one of these seats in each of the rows is empty. So we could do a similar layout to this. There's definitely not a lot going on this layout. Let's get back to the layout drawing. You can see it here sitting on this portable frame. So this whole thing is designed to be moved and to go to other places. I don't think it's quite meant for the traveling circuit as far as that goes, because this would be a bear to put together. But it is sort of an odd layout. But anyway, let's see that. All right, so let's jump back to the coaster RCT real quick, and let's look at some wooden coasters from last time. So I went back through and tried to improve the layouts for some of these that I built on stream but wasn't quite satisfied with. So here's our GCI older style coaster, like Wildcat at Hershey Park. So we built this one last year, or last week on stream. And you can kind of see it's not an awful layout, but it's kind of got a weird overall design to it. Also a little bit short, and kind of forcing itself here to go snug up alongside this Helix and this turn here, and this whole diagonal return run is just not the best looking. So while it wasn't an awful coaster, I kind of thought we could do better. So what we did is put this one together, which I'm a lot happier with. So it's still got, you know, your typical GCI elements. So it's got the little pre-drop here, and let's fix up. There we go. Fix our rides. Still has our nice steep drop, and still keeps this little bit of a first curve here. But then we're going to go diagonal off of that and come down, and then really keep things up against the different parts and pieces. So we have this like final helix here, or final curve wrapping the smaller one. But I like the look of that. I think it works pretty well. And then we were able to get this guy to pick up alongside here as well. There's this drop diagonally, goes back across, gets right up against the lift hill. Then we're going to wrap around again. We're trying to do these different directional changes. So right here, left here. This is kind of one long left around, but then we'll curve right again, go down, and then we'll go left again, then right, then left. So we're really trying to change up the directions and keep it into a nice, smooth, flowing layout overall. Have our diagonal breaks here, and then the final breaks on this side. So much happier with this layout than I was with the first one. So that one's getting better. Another one that we did over here, we being I suppose, was this guy, which was set more so like Gold Striker. Not bad. We did get our station fly through, which was something that we had wanted to do on the stream. That was one of the things we were trying to shoot for. Again, trying to keep this wrapped up against the structure in a couple of spots. But we have this sort of awkward brake run here, where there's a short brake run here, then this, which would be the transfer track, then the actual brakes here, all at right angles to each other, which can be fine if the rest of the layout supports it, but it honestly just doesn't look very good. And then this like triple crossover is not necessarily something where we want to go. It's just going to be a lot to support if you're going to mess with supports like that, and the clearances aren't just really what you want to look at. So I improved it by doing this one, which is a lot more like Gold Striker, but I think fits pretty well overall. We didn't have the station fly through, but we do have a station fly by with the speed hill right here. I have a nice little start of free lift here. Need to look at the start of that just a little bit, but so same drop, same style here. Where instead of crossing underneath the lift hill, we're just going to go side by side. Come on. I forgot that we have all of the unchecked now. check, 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 check. Let's take a look at this. We dive underneath the brake run there, which I do like. Same thing with the start there. And the timing your crossovers really makes a difference. So this is sort of a knot of track right here. Just barely getting the clearances to work right there, but I think it turned out nicely. And then this turn gets us aligned to hug the supports on this one. We'll do that for a second until we split off and then drop underneath. This Helix kind of off by its side, but the same thing with this one and then this one on the far end. And then it's going to come around and pop up into the brake run. So again, I feel like this is a much improved variety of ride. Feeling good there. I did this one off to the side, which we will be doing a second wooden coaster stream at some point. We're going to do historic wooden coasters. We did modern this last time, so this time we're going to do historic wooden coasters. So this is one that I was just playing around with while I had the map open. This is based on the Williams Grove Cyclone. That was in Pennsylvania. It's sadly standing but not operating right now, and standing you can kind of take with a grain of salt because it is dilapidated and falling apart, so it's not coming back, unfortunately. But it's got these little tiny trains. But the big thing about this is that it's a stacked coaster, so only using one set of vents for the outrun and the return run. So we have the return run literally up underneath of the outrun. So it's kind of interesting. And comes through here. There we go. Then pops out again to the brake. So just something to play with, since I hadn't really built one of those before. But if you need a space-saving layout, that's a pretty good option, and it's something pretty historic. I believe this one, the real one of this, was built in 1923. So it's on the older end, but something fun. But anyway, the last one that I had spruced up over here was the Gravity Group Modern Wooden Coaster. So we were building one kind of like the ones in China that have an inversion in them, have a roll. We're using the new Timberliner trains in the 12-car variety, and then have some kind of weird banking here on the hills and everything. Now, I didn't hate this layout. I thought it was all right. Kind of have our inversion here at the end. Not super well featured. And then knots around a little bit here with this messy turnaround. We did have our opposing banked hills here, which was something that a couple of those out in China have. Kind of neat from an off-rider perspective if you get the right angle, but if not, then it really doesn't make a big difference. So not too bad. Pacing was okay. So what I did was I redid it a little bit, and this was similar to the one in Wuhu, China, W-U-H-U, which is just fun to say. But there is a couple of Fantawild parks in Wuhu, and one of their parks has a Gravity Group wooden coaster such as this, where it's sort of a double out and back layout, but there's a roll over top of the lift hill, or over top of the first drop, so you kind of have this neat framed first drop as you come down. You're looking right at that inversion as you go up underneath of it. So that's what we're going to do here, and what I worked on adjusting the layout for. Couple of weird airtime hills here and a double down up into that roll. And we wrap around and really just kind of following along through this whole thing. So not bad. The pacing is a little bit slow at the end. I would honestly recommend adjusting the friction just a little bit to get it to pace a little bit better, but I don't think you need to. I mean, it's fine as it is. But so those are my 3 improved varieties here. I didn't really touch the other ones, but I'm still real happy with this Intamin one, like Jupiter. Jupiter combined with White Cyclone. So Sheep, I can get that. Some of them are really odd looking. There's a couple of them that really just don't have a whole lot of flow, especially to the beginning. Like the rolls are sort of out on their own, and then it just has this weird out and back that doesn't really follow any of the other ones. So it's sort of a bit of an oddball design overall. I mean, they're certainly doing well for themselves because they've sold more there than anywhere else in the world, but at the same time, it just doesn't quite fit where I would be doing. So like, I have a hard time building those in the game because you kind of have to intentionally make it flow weird. It's like early Aero coasters. They're tough to make, in my opinion, because you kind of have to make them bad, and yeah, it's tough when you specifically spent most of your time trying to do like proper flowy layouts and everything. So I don't know. All right, so let's see if we can make a Fabbri invert real quick, since we were looking at that. We're going to use the B&M again because it's the most versatile. Really, really would love to have some custom variety of something in here at some point, but it's one high. Look. And the big part of this is we're going to use these stupid little 3-car trains. 3. Unfortunately, we can't have 3 across, but just picture it being stupid, and then work just fine. Just need 2. Just need 2. So we're going to give it an unload station just because it feels bad. All right. Ugh. They do. Italian manufacturers make the weirdest coasters, just full stop. I mean, there's really such an odd thing. I mean, Italian manufacturers have weird stuff to begin with. All right, so we're gonna give it a weird first drop here. Now, can we do? Yeah, we can. Okay, and then the real thing comes along like this. Yeah, we're gonna look at the Energizer next, actually, because that one's on my list because there's a good story behind it. You've paid attention to that one in the past. Okay, and then it comes way down, and right now I'm just alt-tabbing back and forth over to the thing here, or to the pic photos of it, just to make sure that I'm doing it properly. All right. Annoyingly, you can't do a small helix, which I would have liked to have done. Yeah, the front car literally fell off. It's the only time that I've ever heard of that being a thing, and it's not what you want to have. That'll ruin your day. Yeah, Dragonflyer is another good one. So there's a whole slew of early or of like family type invert coasters that I could pretty easily do. So it's just a matter of which ones do you want to do. We can certainly look at those. Let's see here. So this is sort of kind of drops down. Man, this thing is so cursed. It's a terrible layout. So the I'll pull it up in just a second. It's called Cobra at Tivoli Fredden. And he repaired it, and it's running still. Reason. Okay. So then kind of has this like little drop here. Barely even interpretive as a drop, so we'll just, guess we gotta drop it to get underneath of that. This is again why you don't do recreations of stuff in the game, because it just ends up looking weird. Just awful. Awful. Most of these, it depends. Generally, they're going to have curved drops because the curved drop gets you out of the out of the cars touching each other, because you figure when you kind of angle down on a hill on an inverted coaster, think about the bottom of the train. It's going to come closer together, and if you have a really steep transition like that, you're going to get to the point where you could essentially kick the other car in front of you because they're so close together. So in order to avoid that, you're going to see a lot of these kind of rides going with a curved drop just to be able to get out of that design. Man, I'd almost have to go the whole way over there. Just it's already bad enough. We can just come through and do that. See if this actually makes it the whole way. It does, barely. So do not recommend, but if we go for the look here, this is here, and then let me turn around real quick, and there we go. That. There was an attempt. It was not a good attempt, but it was an attempt. Anyway, let's forget about this one because I think that's... Alright. Next up, back to the database. Alright, so this is the one that that had its troubles with the front car. You can kind of see it's an interesting thing. It was made by Sartori, and the designer was Ride Tech, T-E-K. It is the only coaster that Ride Tech has ever designed, though I would recommend checking out their website at some point. They've got a weird design for a bunch of different stuff, like some really kind of oddball things. They're not all like totally awful, but not really good either. So it's odd, but what they've done is they've gotten some really small inversions onto a compact thing. So look, there's a Cobra roll in the middle of this basically traveling fair coaster. It's an odd design. You can see the whole thing's on a space frame here, so it's made to be movable, adjustable. You can move it around. And here you can see the layout just right here. It's got an Immelman, it's got a Cobra roll on the thing, and then there's a Helix, and then a final Helix in there. So let's screw around with this, see if we can do something. It doesn't look good. I've never ridden it. I would like to, for the morbid curiosity of the whole thing, but it doesn't look great, I'll be honest. But that said, I've ridden some really poor coasters, and sometimes it's worth it for the laugh, for the lols. Alright. Yep. Good catch. Alright, so let's we're gonna do same height. No, that's the same. Alright, so let's see. If you do it this way, it kind of sort of lines up with everything. Is the lift hook going to hit? It's not. Bonus. Yeah, I'm a fan of the compact footprints in the game. You do it if you can do it right. It's just generally you have stuff like this. Where it may be right, and yet it's still wrong. Yeah, I would really love to ride one of the Pinfari inverts. They're just hard to find now. Now we're getting to the point where this is difficult because of the clearances on inverted coasters in the game. I can't go anymore. That. Oop. Might be out of luck. Yeah, there were 4 total Pinfari inverts. And yeah, it's not looking so hot for those. It did indeed have a trouble with some fire. Got a little crispy. Okay. This is like soul crushing trying to build some of these like terrible rides. Because it's just really awful. I want to even see if this is gonna make it. See how many trains or cars did these have? 5 cars per train, 2 across. So use the compact. Yeah, no, fire definitely, they're not immune, as some other coasters can tell, other steel coasters can say. I mean, in the early days, wooden coasters were susceptible to all that because for some reason, not a lot of that damaging. But yeah, the integrity of the steel is the big thing in a fire. See if we can even get through this layout. Oh, it's not gonna go well. Barely. Got that much. It's where's that? Let me see if it can even make it up that. See if it does anything. Just barely, actually. Which is interesting, not totally awful. One of the key things when you build a portable type coaster like this too is trying to get the all the stuff to stack, so that when you do use it. How do they get an expansion of the track? So the track is usually large enough that the expansion is not going to make a huge difference. It generally happens at the transfer track, where you will see a difference. So you do get binding in the transfer track sometimes, where it just doesn't want to bend proper, or it can seize up the transfer track. So that's a consideration that's not always good. Alright, we're going to call that one now. Here is the Pinfari inverted coaster. It does something similar to the Vekoma's rollover. fun fact, the original one was at Neglo Land, which sits where Alpina Blitz is now, by Mock Rides. Yeah, generally it's going to be in the transfer track, or it's. I mean, the thing is with the way that it sits on supports, you'll usually. I mean, you can get a fair bit of expansion and contraction without really damaging anything on the ride. I mean, it's big enough that it can kind of flex a little bit. I mean, coasters do flex a fair amount, so it can do that. Yeah, I'm guessing a not entirely licensed Batman logo, because some of these did go as Batman, I believe. But there were two different varieties. There was the 56 and then there was the 48 model. So there's one in... So there's two operating, apparently. This one is in the country of Georgia. So that's... sure is easy to get to. It's this one's looking like it may have caught fire also. That's not looking so good. Yeah. And as to add to expansion joints and everything too, there's there's ball joints on a number of older coasters. Like a lot of Schwarzkopf coasters had ball joints to kind of adjust how the flexibility went on some of those. Alright, so here's another one as far as inverted coasters goes. So this is S&S's foray into inverted coaster design. So this is Merlin's Mayhem. It's at Dutch Wonderland in Pennsylvania, which is my home park from when I was a kid. My first coaster was here. Honestly, the track can be weak when it has as many supports as that does. You generally, on the what you call the ladder track, which is just the rails and the cross ties and no spine track, that's ladder track, or bi-rail track, it's not very strong, not at all. But when you have as many supports as you do, you can kind of get away with it. Let's take a look at it. We're getting sidetracked, but I'm good with that because I'm pretty much done. So let's take a look at Superman Ride of Steel at Six Flags America. Okay, so you'll notice that this is ladder track. This is bi-rail track right here. Look at how many supports there are on that. Look at how many supports. There's got to be, I don't know, 50, 60 supports on just that helix there. But then you look elsewhere on the ride, and let's see if there's a good shot here. I mean, you can kind of see how they're spaced out here is much further apart. Now this is the lattice, which is just cheaper in general for that kind of size, but spaced further apart than you have over there. So the reason is a trade-off in cost as far as footer cost and support cost versus track cost. So bi-rail track is much cheaper to build than tri-rail track. So tri-rail being the kind of standard Intamin box track that is Intamin's kind of base track, the strongest track. But and especially something like quad rail track, which is really only used for spanning large distances. But you can kind of see here, I mean, the distances spanned like here is far larger than something like this. So it's really just a trade-off as to what's cheaper. Honestly, cost is the primary factor in pretty much every theme park decision. And it's... there's a lot of those kind of speculation type things when people look at a ride and go, well, why is it like that? Generally, your first guess should be cost, because that's usually the answer. But jumping back to Merlin's Mayhem here, so this is a nice little S&S coaster. It doesn't have any inversions. It's a family coaster. 2 across trains. Nice little suspended ride. So this is the only one of these that they've made, but it's cute and has a nice little layout to it. Has these kind of neat supports similar to how B&M is supposedly doing their supports for the for Monster at Gronelund. So that's an interesting kind of design. But why don't we play around with this real quick, because it's not a huge layout. So let's out of curiosity, I wonder if they have it on Google Maps yet. We can see the overall layout just a little bit. It does feel very Vekoma-ish. So nope, it is not in there just yet. So it kind of took the center of the park here. So this is Sky Princess, which is CCI's first wooden coaster, and was my first wooden coaster and coaster of any of them. So a little bit of nostalgia there. Oh, you sent me the B&M family coaster layout. Let's have a look. Let me download that real quick, and then I can pull it up on the stream here. So let's okay. TD6 file. You couldn't have sent me the map. I might have to restart the game for that, actually. So Vekoma or B&M did actually make a family coaster variety. Oh, there's Volcano. We were talking earlier about Intamin complete circuit launch coasters, so here is the primary one. So a little sad to look at this. It had two cool launches. So it had a launch through the tunnel, out the back, went wrapped around, and then launched forward, and then came vertical up out of the mountain or out of this volcano as the fire blew, and then it kind of worked its way down and then dropped into the thing. So anyway, let's we were gonna build a one of the SNS ones real quick. And then we'll go there. So, yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it was a great ride. It was a lot of fun. I would love to ride the other complete circuit Intamin coasters because there's a couple of really cool looking ones. But yeah, it was a good looking ride. It was. I mean, it was the flagship ride of the park. Which is unfortunate because it kind of says a little bit about the park. But yeah, it does have, I mean, sort of crazy-ish supports. Kind of do like a little bit of dip here and there. Yeah, I mean, I-305 is probably the flagship for them if you were to ask their marketing team. Dominator would probably be my pick as the best thing there, but if you've spoken to me about coasters before, you've probably heard my dislike of I-305, and I am theoretically in the minority for that because I know others like it quite a bit more than I do, but I was not a huge fan of I-305. But I mean, it's not to say that it's a bad coaster, but it's also, in my opinion, not a great coaster. It's not like a top 10. All right, let's. I feel like this is pretty much all you need to do for something like one of these guys. Yeah, I would say Dominator probably has that #1 ridership there. I mean, Dominator's capacity is huge, but in the way that Cedar Fair used to, and probably still does run their rides with the pretty high capacity, I would guess that it has held up pretty well as far as overall capacity goes. All right, how long is Merlin's? Let's see. Is Many trains? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once again, 10 seems to be the magic number for these, especially the compact inverted coaster. Let's give 10. We're going to do a single train. We could actually, and now that I'm thinking about this, I'm going to adjust it. We're not going to have a full brake run. We'll do the Vekoma method here, and come through. Ooh, close. See how far it sticks out the back end. Alright, so this is going to be the first SNS one with an 8-car train, because that fits. There we go. Here's an SNS inverted. Okay. So not a bad thing there. I mean, you can get into a lot of different junior inverted ones, generally the Vekoma ones. But let's look real quick at the B&Ms, and then we'll wrap up here. So, family inverted coaster. So, Happy Valley Parks, which is a chain of parks in China, contacted B&M back in 2014 to make a junior inverted coaster for their Happy Valley Park in Shanghai. They've also since done one in Beijing. If you know coasters, you will look at this one and say that it is a mirror image of the Vekoma suspended family coaster, first seen at Garterlands, and now is all over. They've sold a number of these. You'd be right. It is. It's pretty much a copy of it. And from what I understand from the storyline was that Happy Valley was not super happy with Vekoma's quality overall, and Vekoma wasn't super happy about working in China, especially with Happy Valley having bought a couple of Chinese-built coasters after having purchased Happy Valley, or having purchased Vekoma-built coasters. So they didn't really want to work with Vekoma, and Vekoma didn't really want to work with them. So here we have a B&M family coaster in the same layout as the Vekoma, on request of Happy Valley. Couple little changes. So the figure 8 turnaround here on the right is a crossover, so kind of jumps up on the other side and then loops around. But it's pretty close otherwise. No shots. I'm still looking at the actual thing. I haven't pulled up yours here, but you got the crossover, and then it wraps up and then comes in one train operation. So it's pretty straightforward. Definitely much more expensive than the other one, but I mean it's pretty interesting just to see B&M basically kind of take a different one or a different ride like that and kind of put it together. All right, let me save this real quick, and then did you use the I have to restart the game for it. I can just pull it up later on. Yeah, I don't see it in here, but I can pull it up at a different point and take a look. But they do offer it in their catalog if you want to buy a B&M family invert, you can. It's going to cost you way more than the Vekoma one does, but that's fair. Let's actually, I'm not going to open yours right now. I'm going to try and make one, and then I will I can post or you should post a screenshot of yours afterwards, and then we can compare. post that in Discord. All right, let's take a look at this guy. So with every B&M, we're gonna have a straight track before the lift hill to engage it at the proper speed. These have 10 cars, because of course they do. They are 2 across. They use the vest harnesses, just without the actual vest piece. Let's see, compact inverted coaster, so we'll use the 2 across trains. 1 train, 10 cars. Okay. Pretty short lift hill to no pre-drop on this thing. Gonna go pretty much straight into this. I think mine's gonna be a little bit off to the real thing. There's kind of a bit of a back and forth between how these come together. I'm jumping back and forth looking at the overall layout for the thing. This probably deserves to be wider. That way we can do something with this. Backing our way out of an element here. Do the helix up, so we'd have to continue with it like this. This is honestly one of those situations where I would probably do a 0 clearance, so I would take this and 0 clearance across to do that. I feel like you can kind of get away with some 0 clearancing, but that'll be my comment for something like that. That puts us pretty far over on this side. This is once again why I don't do recreations, because the nuance of this layout, as nice as this layout is very much lost on a recreation such as this. Not the best by any means with the pink one. There's certainly ways you could smooth this a little bit, I would say, but in general, if you're going to build something like this in the game, I would say build a custom one and just make it similar using the same tenants, and then make it fit the game, because I think you really have to balance that, what looks good in the game versus what looks good in the real thing. Hey now, I'm doing proper colors here. Let's jump back and take a look at our Beijing. There we go. Look at that building. That's a That's a mess for you. This sums up Chinese theming in general. Like, really just garish, gaudy, in your face, like decent theming, but just so terrible. Um, Even the fully kind of legit parks like this, and themes that are trying to be more legit, it's just I can't. I don't know. I don't know. I'm getting pink out of that. Now, granted, it's coming as magenta in some of these colors, but those are pretty cool structures around the uh, around this bit. I mean, it looks fine. It's yeah, it's interesting. Well, there's our little one. I may work on that just a little bit, and then we're gonna pretend like the ride tech one just never happened. So that's fine, and then we'll have our Fabbri is gonna be over here being sad. We'll move that into the corner and ignore that one. But let's take a recap just for anybody who missed the stream earlier in the day. Let's take a look at what we did today. So first of all, we made an early B&M inverted coaster. So this is like flight deck / Top Gun at California's Great America. So we've got kind of a sprawling layout, small inversions, pretty short ride, a lot of these kind of helixes and things like that. So not bad, but not necessarily great either. Flight deck based itself a lot on context of other stuff around it. So, that's something to consider when you have layouts that are weird. Sometimes layouts aren't weird for the sake of being weird. It's because there's stuff in the way. So, something to pay attention to when you're building your real stuff. And if you want to have a weird layout, build some context. You can fake it. You can build it backwards. It's like when I do terrain coasters. I always build the coaster and then I build the terrain around it. So, don't limit yourself because it's a certain way in some things, but not others. Just go ahead and do it, and then adjust it later. So here we have more modern B&M. This is similar to Osiris at Park Asterix. It's big, no mid-course brake run. Probably doesn't need one, but it's definitely on the fence of having one. This one uses terrain just a little bit, which we would do as far as trenches go and things like that. So a consideration, but still not too bad. Thank you also to all the people who have followed so far today, by the way, since I haven't called those out. So Spectral Danny is recent list, most recent one. Sim Sandwich 7, Techno Fuzzy, Bibicoca, Cactus Coffee, Kukos, Nagasadel 17, Modern Shoe, Oti Loti. I always hate pronouncing usernames because I know I'm doing them wrong. Bioctic Virus, Mount Corey, Sunrise Hots. Man, all you guys, you guys are really following today, so thank you very much. Appreciate that. That's good to see you guys here, and hopefully it'll show up for future ones of these streams here. So thank you very much for following. And IMBW267, you subscribed before you before you even followed. So thanks for that. You were number 2 subscriber too, actually. So thank you for the Prime sub, and so you get your little first badge there for it. And then we did our Vekoma SLC, which is one of these ones that you can do in a bunch of different ways in the game. And there's a lot of right ways to do it, and none of them are going to look exact. None of them are going to look totally spectacular either. So you give it your best shot. Do all your do as much as you can to make it have all the different elements, like crossing over the drop on the upper side, making sure that the rolls cross over top of the Sidewinder here, making sure you get your banking on top of this hill. So all those bits can kind of line up to make the whole ride look okay. And I think okay is about as best as you can hope for. Then we have our Invertigo here, which We did add our second low slope just to get this a little bit higher. I would probably take that one out, to be honest, and just adjust the friction, which you can do in open if you do ride set mass. So if you press the tilde key, get up the console, and you can do rides list. What is it? Rides list with a space in it. And this will give you all your rides, and then you just have a you have each ride. So like our Invertigo was Compact Inverticoaster 2, so that would be ride type number 6 here. So you would basically just go in there and do ride set mass, and then you do the 006, and then you can adjust it. I don't remember what the scale is for it. You can look it up, but then you can do that, and it will adjust. So the console is your friend. If you've never used it before, you can definitely do a lot of cool stuff with it that you might not do otherwise. But that definitely slowed it down, and you can kind of see it's barely making it now. So we can try ride set mass 006 50. But something to consider. And then we did our giant inverted boomerang here, which we never did put in the spikes on, so we can put in the fake spikes there, but it does use them. Back it up. There we go. The S-bend is an unfortunate consequence of just not having the ability to use finer diagonal curves in this game. So it's just the best you can do. And it doesn't look great, but you kind of just suck it up and theme it really well so it doesn't look as bad. Over here we have our Impulse Coaster from Intamin. Free passes back and forth. Pretty standard fare. We did the 1 twist and 1 spike version. You can kind of do 2 twists, you can do 2 spikes, and anything in between. Alright, then we had our big custom SLC. So this is like Odyssey at Fantasy Island in England. And it's doesn't have a great layout, but it's pretty standard fare for what B&M is doing with this kind of stuff. Not too much to see overall, but looks pretty alright. Flows reasonably well. Then we did our Giovanola here, which is pretty similar to B&M. A little bit differences. So 2 across trains. We got our little flat bit at the top for the stage or for the lift hill. We have 2 in a row flat spins or corkscrews, which is something that B&M is not going to do. So you're really not going to see that on those. But other than that, it's pretty similar, and I think it looks just fine. So I think I like this one, maybe the best of all the ones that we did today. Although I kind of like the Fantasy Island Odyssey one that we did, the custom SLC. I'd be curious to know from you all what your favorite one of the stream today is. I think the Giovanola really works well. Especially the big helix here, kind of nice and flowing. Into those corkscrews at the right speed. Wrap around to our diagonal brakes. Alright, and what else did we do? So we did our modern Vekoma over here, which I'm actually pretty pleased with also. I think this one turned out rather well. Aside from just too short of a brake run. So we don't have the trains or the track to do this properly, but we can have a nice flowing layout, really based on curves. A couple new airtime hills, and the inversions are all entirely rolls. So pretty similar to the one that had just opened a trip drill. Take a look at this guy. And if you really want to get bold, you can thread a junior boomerang through this too, like the real one has. So kind of fun fact on these rides, these are sold together as packages. It's not that It's not that Tripstro came to Vekoma and said, "Hey, we want to buy not just one coaster but two." Is that Vekoma came to Tripstro with, "Hey, these are what we're offering. This is a package deal of this inverted coaster and this junior coaster." Now, granted, you can buy one or the other if you wanted to, but it's a package deal that's sold together, and get 2 for 1. All right, and then we did a couple other little bits in here. We have this cursed Fabbri ride over here, which in real life has 3 across trains and three cars deep, like insurance bundling. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's when Hershey Park bought Stormrunner, they bought a 3 package deal from Intamin, which gave them discounts for various rides, but also gave them you know, 3. Basically, they said to Intamin, "We're going to buy 3 coasters over time, and as long as you," and Intamin said, "All right, well, as long as you do, we're going to give you this big discount," and they did. Now, I say big discount. I don't actually know if it was big. I don't know the financial implications of it, but it was a thing. Tasting my ride, but there we go. Okay, and then we did 2 other small ones here. We did an SNS Junior. That's correct, yeah, Stormrunner, Fahrenheit, and Skyrush. And then we have our B&M a junior coaster here, which is okay. It copies the Vekoma layout. It does so reasonably well. Not spectacular, but it's still all right. So they've sold 2 of these now, same exact layout, but I would kind of like to build one of these custom at some point just to screw around with it. But anyway, that's all we've got for today. So actually a shorter stream than usual. We haven't hit 4 hours yet, so that's good news. I am open always for suggestions for what you want to see next time. This time we did this guy, but I am open to the future. We had talked about launch coasters at one point. We had talked about doing a go through the entire B&M catalog and do one of each, which we can also do. Gives us some new B&M layouts. We can do old Arrow coasters. We can do... I probably won't do the details stream just yet with the coaster supports and stuff, but I will do that at some point. Since that one's going to take a little bit more prep, I think, for me to get everything ready, but details, custom supporting transfer tracks, stuff like that. So that'll be a future one, but probably not necessarily next week, just because I don't think I'm going to have the time to prepare for it. Yeah, so we'll get there. And then the other thing, yeah, honestly, the Arrow catalog sounds fun to me because you can kind of do a bunch of weird stuff. So you can do like special coaster systems. So you can do something like Gemini. You can do something like Steeplechase. And there's all the way up to the Hypercoaster, Mine Train, the Looper, kind of small Looper, Mega Looper. I mean, Arrow's got a lot of stuff, so you can definitely do a lot there. You don't necessarily have the trains for everything, but you can still make it interesting. A custom looping coaster especially. I had an ask at one point for terrain coasters, but I don't quite know how to do that one exactly. I mean, I can build a terrain coaster, but I don't think there's really a whole lot more that I can do with it. I mean, really, you're just kind of, I would say you build it with land massing, and then you kind of build them at the same time, but I'm not sure there's a whole stream out of that, but all looping coasters is a category I've been wanting. That's a lot of coasters, though. I feel like we could probably pick and choose and go through, because I've kind of liked how this development works, like we did with hypercoasters and with wooden coasters and everything, is taking a taking a selection and going through the history of it all, and just talking through what all each one of these things was. Um, Schwarzkopf is a good one too. Um, Although there wasn't a ton of variety. I mean, you have your traveling fair stuff. You've got the more terrained stuff, like you got your BHS and Zero partnerships and things like that. But on the whole, there's be interesting to see some of that kind of stuff. I think the differences between famous ones like Schwarzkopf and Arrow. That's fair. I guess I just need to figure out how the best way to do that is. Oh, thanks, John Delfino 1126 for the follow. But yeah, we could certainly talk through how some of those came and went. I mean, you look at early looping coasters. We could always go through something like that, such as the Arrow corkscrew and up through the Schwarzkopf. Because I mean, really, you hear everybody talk about Revolution at Magic Mountain as the first modern looping coaster, which it was, but that's looping. People fail to mention corkscrew. Arrow or Knott's Berry Farm's corkscrew from Arrow was 1 year before the before Revolution at Magic Mountain. So it's still it's always a little bit funny how history plays that out. So something you can consider as far as that goes, but I'm always interested in that. And then I wanted to ask, is there any interest in me going through and just doing park building on stream? I did it a little bit earlier this week, just kind of building on one of my my current solo park. But I'm interested. I could do like scenario play, just realistically. I could do just simple stuff like that. But yeah, I'd be interested in doing some things like that. I had thought about trying Parkitect and going through the scenarios for that for a little while. But I think for now I want to continue continue with the RCT2 stuff. Planning a park is interesting. Yeah, actually, that could be pretty interesting, and I think the way that I would do that is pick a couple of parks that do it really well and go walk through them, and we can kind of go that way. And then I can always just take an overall blank map and then just kind of map out with the land tile how you would kind of plan a park as far as size, shape goes, consideration of things like that. Yeah, it definitely has some interesting benefits to it, because there are actual like specific park layout designs that have been studied for things. I mean, Hub and Spoke Disney's is kind of the most famous of them, but it's certainly something we can consider doing. But because I want to expand this a little bit, I mean, I've appreciated all you guys coming by to look at, follow the stream and watch things and enjoy. So I want to expand this out a little bit and make it worth your while and learn you some things. Certainly teach what I know and offer. But I think we'll call that it for today. Like I said, I'm going to post this up on YouTube, and you can see just the raw footage here. It shouldn't get muted or anything since I only used in-game music today. And I'll also post this save file if you want to download the park and just play around and all that. Oh yeah, backstage areas for sure. We can definitely do that. And then feel free to message me in Discord or on New Element or on Reddit, any of those, and let me know if you want to see things in particular. If you want to send me stuff to review or look at, I can do that. I'm doing those on the YouTube channel also. And then, like I said before, if you want to subscribe to the Twitch channel, that helps me out as far as just keeping making this content goes, or go subscribe on YouTube more so too, just because that's an easy way to help boost the channel spread, so more folks can see all this. love to get more people in here talking, asking questions, and all that. So, anyway, thank you, Director of Vibes, for that follow. Appreciate you coming out. But anyway, we'll call it a day, and I will work on uploading this now. So thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you taking a look, and let's get our outro music going since we did have that on the way in. Let's we're gonna pick. I always like modern style. That was one of my favorites. But let's go with urban. No. See you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.